All right. Why don't we go ahead and get started? I will call to order the Common Council meeting on July 26th at 7:30. First up on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Alder Allen.
Present.
Alder Frada.
Here.
Alder Gerhardt.
Here.
Alder Herbst.
Here.
Alder Maldonado.
Here.
Mayor Richardson.
Here.
Alder Strassman.
Here.
Alder Udell.
Here.
Alder Wheeler.
Here.
You have a quorum, Mayor.
Excellent, thank you. Just a reminder, I know there's a few people here that want to speak, that we do have the public for when they speak on things, keep it to 3 minutes unless you're an applicant. All right, so next is public appearances, non-agenda items, new appointments. We do have one mayoral appointment for the Tree Advisory Committee, and we have Ann Sawyer online. And if you could maybe just tell us a little bit about what yourself and why you're interested in this committee, that'd be great.
Yes, hi, I hope my microphone's working right.
It is.
My name is Ann Sawyer. Thanks for considering me for a position on the tree committee. I was born on the East Coast, but I've lived in Wisconsin for many years now, first in Waukesha County, and then I moved to Fitchburg a little over 3 years ago. I've always been a passionate fan of trees. I believe that they improve the quality of life for everyone who interacts with them. They improve air quality, reduce noise, provide shade, sequester carbon, may even improve human mental health. My most relevant qualification for a position on the tree committee is that I completed the Master Gardener program back when I lived in Waukesha County. And subsequently, I was a volunteer on the helpline where people, the public calls in with questions about plants. I also took a course in tree identification. I've planted a number of trees in my own yards. I've cared for them. I've participated in trash cleanups as a kind of interest in beautification, and I'm a friend of the Arboretum. If I am accepted onto the committee, I'll be paying special attention to equity issues. I hope to see that all areas of Fitchburg are getting their fair share of trees and tree maintenance. I'd also be interested to hear whether there are any plans to try to mitigate the proliferation of invasive species like buckthorn, although that might be part of a different department. I would look forward to collaborating with people who share my interest in trees. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you. Any questions at all? Gabriella?
Just a quick comment. Anne, nice to see you here. I actually met Anne at an Arbor Day event way back when she was planting a tree, and I'm so happy that you applied. I think your qualifications are stellar, and really appreciate your words about equity in trees. I think that's a really important thing that we should look at all the time, but especially going forward. And I move approval.
Seconded by Jay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. If anyone's opposed, say nay. All right, that's approved. Thank you very much, Ann. Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is the public hearing on the CIP amendments from 2023 to 2032. I can open the public hearing. I have Patrick Cheney first, and Judith Stadler will be after that. Come on up, Patrick.
Patrick Cheney, 25 years at 5211 Kitty Crest Drive in Fitchburg, speaking in support of a couple of these. Amendment 3, removing bike lanes from Irish Lane for all the reasons given. It's a narrow corridor. Now, if any others insist, demand, or if a majority of the council prefers some bike lanes, be sure to review the Public Works memo. It lists options, a grant contingency, and even better, with future planning, the Moraine Edge Park for a bike path. The big picture here can be the route shown in Moraine Edge Park off separate of Irish Lane. Even the extra 4-foot plus 2-foot gravel is an extra 12 feet of roadway added and triples the cost, and there is really not enough room. This would be difficult to do and detrimental to the corridor. At the east end of Sain, this does not connect to anything. From what I have seen, Lacey Road buffered bike lanes are not used as much as was thought. I would say at most 2-foot pavement to protect the edge plus 2-foot gravel. Think long term. Amendment 6, remove the new fence from Hugo Jamestown Park ball field. The neighbors hate it. But don't surplus or scrap it. Bring it to McGaw Park. The parks crew, for reasoning I have questioned, is determined to replace a McGaw ball field fence. They remove and scrap a fence, do repairs, and reinstall a brand new purchased fence. Use this Hugo Jamestown fence and reinstall it at McGaw. Coordinate 2 projects. I measured both. This will work. This saves from buying a brand new fence for a McGaw ball field. Recycle. For the others, I generally see the merits of all these amendments. I will be watching from home and see what happens. I did mark the line on the registration page to answer questions if needed. Else, if no questions, I'm done.
All right. Thank you very much. Next up is Judith Stadler, and Steve Arnold will be after that.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the Common Council. My name is Judith Stadler. I live at 5629 Newtone Street in Fitchburg. I was very pleased to see Alder Gerhardt's amendments to the Capital Improvement Plan, specifically project number 1038, which would invest in solar canopies on city parking lots when they are upgraded, and project number 1042, which would update the project title and add operating costs for EV charging equipment. Both of these projects would help the city make the transition to a clean energy future that was foreseen when the City Council passed the Fitchburg Clean Energy Resolution in early 2019. As you may know, the United States Supreme Court dealt a serious blow to our clean energy future when it recently ruled against the EPA in West Virginia versus EPA. That ruling will make it far more difficult for administrative agencies such as the EPA to regulate greenhouse gas emissions coming from fossil fuel plants, electric plants, the biggest source of greenhouse gas emissions in our country. The decision of the Supreme Court does not mean that CO2, methane, and other greenhouse gas emissions will go away. It simply means that the rest of us will have to try harder to control greenhouse gas emissions if we are to have any chance of meeting the goals of the Paris Climate Agreement. And one way we can do that is for our local governments and our local elected representatives to do whatever we can at the local level to help us transition to a clean energy future, whether that's using more solar to power city operations or transitioning the city fleet to electric vehicles. It's the energy efficient, right thing to do. Hoping to see many more such local projects receive approval from the Common Council. Thank you for your interest.
Thank you very much. All right, I have Steve Arnold next.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. You received this afternoon a press release that outlines the reasons that Bike Fitchburg opposes Amendment 3 and supports Amendment 4. Paved shoulders, as they're most properly called, are good for the roadway, and they're very important for safety. I'll just make a few other additional points that are not in the letter. Your job is to make choices based on the values of the community which you represent. And one of the trade-offs you're making is, on the face of it, the value of trees versus the value of safety. I would note that if the city forester declared a tree in one of our parks unsafe, it would be removed within a week. Here, we're talking about the relative importance of trees versus the safety of people using the corridor. For bikes people on bikes and people walking to share the lane with 45-mile or 35-mile-an-hour traffic isn't safe. In addition, I would like to point out that there were heritage trees behind my house that were threatened by the construction of the distribution lines, which were in a concrete caisson that runs under the bike path along Fish Hatchery Road. These are the trees at the top of the hill just before leaving the urban service area to the south on Fish Hatchery Road. Those trees were root trimmed by an arborist to protect the trees from damage from the nearby installation of the electric lines. So these trees can be saved if it's done right. In addition, our media release outlines that you can save trees by deviating the road, which instead of putting 6 feet additional on each side, you put 12 feet in addition on one side. This also serves as traffic calming. Lastly, I don't think that the Moraine Edge Park is ever going to come to pass looking at its history. I recommend that you leave these paved shoulders in the CIP. It's projected for 2026. If in the future we determine that the Moraine Edge Park is going to come to pass and come into existence, then you can take it out closer to the time. But let's not remove them now proactively when it's so important for safety. Thank you very much. I would take any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. All right. Seeing none. Next up, we have Paul Satfin. All right, come on up, Paul.
Good evening. I live down at the corner of Cyene and Irish Lane. We have a bike lane that starts and ends at nowhere, almost in front of my house. No bikes use it. People that walk around the neighborhood use it because it gets them off the road. Now, today I had 3 bikes go up and down Irish Lane. On most days, I can count 5 or 6. So are we going to do something totally not even feasible for use? Okay, if I had 25, 30 bikes every single day, we'd have a problem. But there ain't that much use. Ironman brings in at least 2,000 to 3,000 bikes on Irish Lane. But once they're gone, it's vacant. And the other thing, Mr. Arnold thinks go around the trees. Well, if you come down and sit at my driveway, you tell me how to go around my 2 oak trees. It takes 3 people, if not 4, but 3 big people to hug my oak trees. When I was 10 years old, I could climb them. So it shows how old I am. I don't know if anybody around here knows that in 62 years that I've been here, we haven't kept our roads up. We're always building new roads and all this stuff. And Irish Lane should have been repaved and redone 5 years ago. No money. So now you're going to put water main and you're going to completely screw up Irish Lane on that up to East Hill. Because beyond East Hill, they have water main over to West Hill. So where all this money is going to put a bike lane for that segment. Now, if you're going to go from my place on Cyene all the way up to Fitch Hatchery with a bike lane, we don't have the money. We don't have the, it does not show the amount of people to use it. And I just think that we ought to cut that out of the project. And, there's going to be worse things to do when you put that water main in. We got to not ruin the oak trees that are down on Irish Lane on that, between Cyene and East Hill. On both sides of the road, there are oak trees. So, my thing is, I'm against the pedestrian lane and the bike lane, and I don't think we should be spending $2 billion or whatever you want to call it.
Thank you, Paul.
Yep.
I appreciate your time.
Any questions?
All right. Is there anyone online, Scott, to talk on CIP? I do not believe so. All right. I believe everyone here has spoken on CIP. Thank you very much. We did have a lot of emails that came in on various topics on the CIP, and so I can read those. They were all sent to the council members, so all the council members saw these. We had a number of people write in support of the amendment to remove the shoulders on Irish Lane. We had Eric Podell from Fitchburg, Rita Hendricks from Fitchburg, Sue Chapman from Fitchburg, Terrell Brock from Fitchburg, Troy Klein from Fitchburg, Jackie Halverson, she didn't say where she was from, Lisa West from Fitchburg, Veronica and Perry Heidi, who did not say where they were from, Stephen Lynn Smiley, who did not say where they live, Mary Power from Fitchburg, Sue Easterday from Fitchburg, and Jay Hockmuth from Fitchburg. We also had some people who wrote in that opposed the amendment to remove Irish Lane. So essentially they want the shoulders on Irish Lane, the opposite of that. We had William Newman from Fitchburg, Kay Lum, she didn't say where she lives, I think Fitchburg, Bill Jetzer from Fitchburg, and Maggie Bach from Fitchburg. We had one person who wrote in that does not want the shoulders added to Whalen Road. That's Troy Klein from Fitchburg. We had some people write in that they do want the shoulders moved up on Whalen Road, so in favor of the amendment. William Newman from Fitchburg, Kay Lum, she didn't say where she lives, Bill Jetzer from Fitchburg, and Maggie Bott from Fitchburg. And then we had a person write in favor of the amendments 8 and 9, which is the splash pad and the inclusive playground shade structures. And that was Sue Easterday from Fitchburg. We had a few people actually write in also in favor of Amendment 1 and 2, which was the solar and the hybrid vehicles. And that was Troy Klein from Fitchburg and Paul and Sue Fieber from Fitchburg. So I believe that's everyone for CIP commentary. Seeing nothing else, I can close the public hearing and we can keep going. So the next thing would be the consent agenda. Is there a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Jay, seconded by Joe. Anything people want to separate out on the consent agenda? Gabriella?
Three things. Number 1, our 8322. Number 2,
Wait, which was?
I'm sorry.
specific one?
I think it's number 1, C1, our
C1,
8322.
All right.
C2, our 14422.
Okay.
And C7, our 15322.
All right. Julia, I saw you had some.
Yes, I would like to remove C10, R158-22.
All right. Anyone else? All right. Then all in favor of approving everything but those items, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Nay. All right. We can go through here. First one, Gabriella, C1, R8322.
So for this one, it was just a question. I just wanted to make sure that the neighbors have been notified about the public hearing because it's coming up pretty quickly.
Bill, are you able to answer that question? I believe that the answer to that is yes, but I don't know when the notification went out.
I know they. Oh, there he is.
It went out on Friday
By mail? Is that?
by mail, yes.
Okay.
Anything else?
Okay, yeah, and then, no, that's it for that. I just
I
wanted to
moved to
clarify.
that one then.
Yeah, I moved to refer it. I moved to refer our 8322.
Is there a second? Seconded by Julia. All in favor of approving that referral, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. All right, that was approved. Next one.
So R14422, I'd like to refer it to RCC. There's a meeting on August 8th.
All right. So you moving to approve with that addition?
I will move to refer R14422 with that addition to RCC.
Is there a second?
Second.
Sent by Randy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay. All right, that's approved. And then next, number 7.
As R15322, I'd also like to refer it to RCC for their August 8th meeting, and I'll go ahead and make that motion to refer it.
Second.
Sent by Jay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, nay. All right, that's approved. And then Julia, number 10.
Yes, number 10, I would like to refer to tree committee.
All right, would you like to make a motion with that change?
Yes, I would like to refer R15822 to the tree committee.
Second.
All right, sent by Gabriella. All in favor of adding tree committee and improving everything else as is, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. All right, that is approved. Moving on to administrator's report.
Good evening, everybody. I've got quite a few things here of perhaps interest to those present. Hope you are all enjoying your July and enjoyed the brief holiday we had from council meetings earlier this month. A couple of hires have been made in the city to fill vacant positions. Transportation engineer has been filled by a person named Kevin Drunaski. He started yesterday with the city. That's Andrew McFadden's prior position. We also have an accepted employment offer for the community development planner. That individual is tentatively scheduled to start on August 15th. From an event perspective, there'll be a ribbon cutting at Wheel and Sprocket tomorrow from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. That's the former Fitchburg Cycles on Cahill, Maine. There's a chamber event at Quivy's Grove on July 28th from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. And there's also another event for Town of Madison Outreach in Southdale Park on July 28th from 4:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. In-person absentee voting began today here at City Hall. That will continue on through August 5th. City Hall is open for in-person absentee voting are Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. The city clerk's office continues to process a number of absentee ballots, both fulfilling requests and also accepting completed ballots. That has been obviously a notable draw on their time and resources. And as a reminder, August 9th is the primary vote that will take place. August 9th. And assessment notices were sent out to property owners last Friday. Our assessor, Amy Mercer, shared an email with council in advance of that information going out. I do want to just highlight for those that may be listening and or watching at a later date that last year, 2021, was a maintenance year, and assessment values did not change. They stayed flat despite the likelihood of a significant increase in value based upon market conditions. This year, 2022, is a revaluation year that was used to establish the assessed values for all properties. So in effect, that adjustment covers a 2-year period. There have been a notable increase in values as a result of that revaluation. On average, the residential increase was approximately 17%. The commercial assessed value increased approximately, on average, 25%. And overall, citywide, it was an approximate 19% increase. There is a lot of information out on our city's website on the assessing page. There was also an insert with the assessment notices that also contained information regarding frequently asked questions. And as always, people should feel free to contact our assessor, Amy Mercer, with any questions that they maybe have, either via email or by phone. And I also want to remind folks that a change in assessed value does not always mean an equal change in your property tax bill in the upcoming season. Property tax levy and mill rates will be established by the City Council and approved later this fall through the operating budget process. Ultimately, that approval will come in November. I'll pause briefly and then go to one last item if anybody has any questions on the assessment item. Finally, on the town of Madison, I just wanted to provide a very brief high-level overview of some of the things staff is working on related to the town of Madison. As you know, we're about 90 days out from the attachment, and I've asked staff in a meeting today to focus their available time, resources, and capacity on those tasks that are related to the town of Madison. I would ask that folks keep that in mind as you place requests and or other inquiries into staff. Their attention will be diverted notably over the next 90 to 95 days on the town of Madison. Here are some of the things that staff is working on. We recently received the updated town hall appraisal. We're reviewing that currently and engaging in some conversations with the city of Madison regarding that appraisal. Severance agreements and the language associated with those, as you'll see later here in council, is the first step in that process. Identifying how the tax bills will be handled come December and mailed out by whom and how. Communication with the state in regards to the state aids that are currently being provided to the town of Madison and how those will be reapportioned to the two municipalities, that being the cities of Fitchburg and Madison. We're also currently working on an apportionment agreement on how the assets and liabilities will be dispersed between the two cities and how much the cost will be to each of the two cities. Adjustments to the boundaries, the wards, forthcoming ordinances will be necessary that we've started to work on that will be coming to council. Rezoning of properties in the town of Madison, process has begun on that. And then that largely covers the highlights of what staff is working on, at least big picture-wise, related to the town attachment. That is not an all-inclusive or all-exhaustive list either. Those are just the high-level, really notable items. So we'll look to do a more formal and in-depth update as more information is available, but likely will be in either the August or September committee of the whole. Questions at all?
All right. Seeing none, we can move along to Plan Commission. Randy.
Motion to approve Resolution R-133-22, approving the project plan and establishing the boundaries for the creation of Tax Incremental District Number 14, City of Fitchburg, Wisconsin.
Second.
By Jay. Did Plan Commission approve?
Plan Commission approved, yes.
Finance approve.
Finance approved.
All right. I don't know if Greg's going to speak or Chad or Mike or who wants to take this, or everyone.
Mike, maybe you wouldn't mind just kicking off a high-level overview of what it is and why.
Sure. This is for development at Lacey Road and South Saline Road, the Hartung property, now called Hartung Fields. We were approached a while back by Sarah Investment, working with Hartung Brothers, to look at development of approximately 120 acres of the 160 there where the Hartung operation is currently located. We were excited about that development to bring some additional developable land in our community, not only for multifamily rental at the northwest corner, but also for additional sites for science, technology, and employment and lab type companies. That's one of the areas where the last couple of years, as Joyce and I have tried to submit replies for a request for proposal from MadRep and WEDC. We've been a little bit limited in our options, and so we've creatively kind of submitted this one, but it's not shovel ready. And then one of the other boxes we haven't been able to check is for any kind of development assistance through tax increment finance. And so what Greg will take us through tonight is a tax increment district project plan for a mixed-use development at that site that, again, will provide more land shovel-ready in our inventory and help us facilitate being able to respond to some of those RFPs that we've been getting. I'll turn it over to Greg.
All right, Gregory.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mayor. As Mike mentioned, included in your handout was a project plan, which is the required document for creation of a new tax incremental finance district. And I've just prepared kind of a summary presentation that includes some of the exhibits that were included in that document. There's no new information in this presentation. It just kind of pulls out some of the key findings from the project plan. Just to briefly recap the process for creating a new TIF district. The timeline is really devised by statute. The process involves the convening of the Joint Review Board, which consists of all the taxing jurisdictions and a public member. They met back in June. No official action was taken. It was just an organizational meeting. There was a required public hearing that had to occur before the Plan Commission, and approval by the Plan Commission is required to create a new TIF district as well. That occurred back in June. The next step is where we're at here this evening, which is consideration by the Common Council. Common Council approval is also required to create a TIF district. If approval is received at all of those levels, it goes back to the Joint Review Board for final consideration. That would occur on August 10th if necessary. Before I walk through and summarize TIF district number 14, just want to kind of give a quick overview on how tax incremental finance districts work. All TIF districts contain a defined geographic area, consists of whole contiguous parcels, and all of the parcels that are within that TIF district at the time it's created have a existing taxable value. So in the case of TIF district number 14, that's the value of all those properties as of January 1st of 2022. All the taxing jurisdictions continue to collect their share of tax revenue on that existing value, which is called the base value. So there's no change in terms of the existing property tax collection to the city or any of the other taxing jurisdictions. The financial benefit of a TIF district occurs when that existing value appreciates, or more likely there is new development that occurs within the TIF district that increases the value within the area of the district. That increase in value over the base value is called the incremental value, and the city retains all of the tax revenue on that incremental value. The city share, county, school districts, technical college, and they use all of that revenue to pay for project costs and expenses that occur within the boundary of that TIF district that were necessary to help bring that development to fruition. So I mentioned the Joint Review Board, which is that panel that consists of all the other taxing jurisdictions. And really, at the core, TIF is a partnership between the city and all those other taxing jurisdictions, because they are agreeing to forego their share of tax revenue on that new development to allow the city to use that tax revenue to help bring that development to fruition and pay for the project expenses. So it stands to reason that the other taxing jurisdictions really have the final approval of a new TIF district, so they're agreeing to forego that future tax revenue. So this graph kind of illustrates that concept. Base value is the existing tax revenue collected, no change in how that's distributed. All of that increase in value is the tax incremental value that the city receives that tax revenue to pay for expenses. And then when the TIF district reaches the end of its maximum life or pays off all of the expenses of the district, it closes, and all of that incremental value returns to the tax rolls, and then all the taxing jurisdictions get their proportional share. So it's really kind of a buy-in that there'll be more value there and more economic development activity, but for the use of tax incremental financing. I'm going to walk through some of the statutory findings that are required to be satisfied to create a new TIF district. First is the 12% test. There's a limit to the amount of value that can be included within tax incremental districts, and that's defined as the incremental value of all of the city's existing districts plus the base value of the property proposed to be included in TID District 14. So the city has several active TIF districts, TID 4, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. The current incremental value of all those districts is approximately $460 million. The base value of TID District number 14 is estimated to be about $4 million. So those two numbers combined is about $464 million. That has to be less than 12% of the city's total equalized value, which is $492 million. So the city meets that 12% valuation test and can create a new district. We're at the point in the year where new equalized values for the city are going to be preliminary released next week by the Department of Revenue and then certified on August 15th. Those will be the values as of January 1st of 2022. If the TIF district is created, the official creation date is the date the Common Council acts to create a TIF district, so that would be today. And the 12% finding is based off of the equalized values that are available as of the date of Common Council action. So we're basing this test as values as of January 1 of 2021. So even if new values come out next week, we still rely on the findings as of the date of Common Council action. So I just wanted to mention that since we're at the point of the year where those new values come out. Mike gave a nice summary of kind of the location of the district and kind of the general intent, kind of focus on some larger tracts of land to be made available for some development opportunities. And really the purpose of the TIF district is to help pay for the infrastructure costs that are necessary for this area to be developed. So the general area we're talking about is immediately south of Haight Farm Road, and then just west of Highway 14 out to South Sain Road, kind of the boundary here that's shown on the map, emphasizing some of the larger tracts of land that are available. This is a mixed-use district, which means it has a maximum life of 20 years. One of the other statutory findings is that you have to meet the land use requirements for a mixed-use district. At least not less than 50% of the area of the district has to be suitable for some combination of commercial, residential, and industrial development. So over 50% of the area meets that test. And then the newly platted residential component that's anticipated to be developed within the TID boundary cannot exceed 35% of the area of the TIF district. And that finding has been met as well. So those are the land use tests that have to be met to create a mixed use district. And we, based on the preliminary site plan that's been submitted, that is in compliance with those tests. Within the project plan, there's been a list of project costs, which I'll summarize in a moment, that have been identified as the TID eligible expenses. Broadly speaking, it consists of the public infrastructure necessary for the area to develop, street and utility improvements primarily. We've also included allowances for development incentives that the city can choose to offer as needed for a particular project. Any development incentive has to be approved through a development agreement between the city and the developer. The city has had a long-standing practice of requiring developers to submit a pro forma that's independently reviewed to demonstrate that a financial gap exists on the project and that TIF assistance is warranted. And typically the city provides development incentives of what's called a pay-as-you-go basis, meaning that the developer is only reimbursed from increment generated from their project. And if the project does not generate enough tax revenue to pay that incentive, the city is under no obligation to make up that shortfall. So it helps mitigate that risk to the city. In the project plan was a detailed list of the anticipated infrastructure costs and the allowances for development incentives, as well as ongoing annual costs of the TIF district. That adds up to about $34 million of project costs. The TID project plan identifies what are TID eligible expenses. So that's the list that's here on the chart and was included in the project plan. By approving a project plan, the city is not committing to undertake any of these projects. It makes it a TID-eligible expense, so in the future, if the city authorizes specific infrastructure improvements or awards a development incentive through a development agreement, that's when you're formally committing to expend the funds. The project plan just makes them an eligible expense that can be reimbursed from the TIF district. So it's required in statutes to list the projects that you intend to fund, but it's not committing you to fund them. The plan is also written to give the city flexibility that you can move dollar amounts between these types of projects. Also gives the city, financial flexibility in how you may fund these projects. Whether the developer pays for some of the infrastructure, gets reimbursed through the TID, developer pays for some of the improvements, and maybe some of those costs do not get reimbursed, or the city could choose to finance a portion of these projects and use tax increment to pay for the debt service. So again, the project plan doesn't commit you to the specific financing method, just gives you the flexibility to undertake what is necessary for a given project. We included a map in the project plan that just shows where the anticipated improvements will be through the district. Each of the projects listed in the chart had a letter identifying its number that ties out to this map. So this just shows, kind of conceptually where the infrastructure's contemplated at this point in time. We've included in the project plan the site plan concept that was submitted previously, has been reviewed by the city at prior meetings. That just kind of shows kind of the mixture of some residential development and some commercial development kind of north of the existing industrial uses on this site. This was the site plan that was used to make sure that the district was in compliance with those mixed land use tests and make sure that the residential component is less than 35% of the entire area of the district. So this was the basis for those findings. So again, this is kind of the conceptual layout that shows the anticipated development within the site. The project plan is required to include a financial feasibility analysis. So that begins with some estimates on the amount of new value, incremental value that was projected to be constructed within the district. Based on that site plan and the developer's anticipated build-out schedule, there was estimated incremental values established for each lot within the overall site plan. So as it stands presently, it's anticipated that that full build-out will begin in this coming year and then occur through 2032. So the anticipated build-out is to occur over several years. The estimated incremental value is about $182.3 million. So this is again a 20-year maximum life district. From a financial standpoint, the sooner the development occurs, the better, because then that gives a longer period of time for that incremental value to generate tax revenue over the 20-year life of the district. If that $182 million of new value is generated over 20 years, that would generate about $59 million of tax revenue to the district that the city can use to pay for the project costs within the district. The cash flow analysis that we included in the project plan is really an illustration, shows potentially how the city could phase in development incentives or infrastructure expenses and use that tax increment to support those project costs. Practically speaking, prior to the city financing any TID projects or awarding any development incentives, there's a lot of financial analysis that is done to make sure that the TIF district has a likelihood of supporting those costs over the life of the district. So this is kind of an illustration. Again, the city is not committing to undertaking any of these costs by just considering the project plan. This outlines, potential financial feasibility if that incremental value comes to fruition. So to summarize, again, really the purpose is to facilitate and provide, as Mike said, some additional land available for some commercial, industrial, and potential residential opportunities within the city to take advantage of some larger tracts of land that could be used to attract some development. The TIF district would be utilized to help pay for the infrastructure costs primarily that's needed to bring that development to fruition. Also provides the city flexibility to award development incentives as needed, as opposed to the city essentially going on its own to fund these capital investments. You're essentially entering into a partnership with the other taxing jurisdictions to help pay for these costs that are related directly to economic development. So that's kind of an overview of the TIF district. I'll pause and see if Mike has anything further you'd like to add.
No, you did a great job.
And I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Joe, go ahead. And then Julia.
Thank you. That was a very thorough presentation. I appreciate it. I have a few questions. Maybe it's for Mike or maybe it's for any other committees that has this gone through other committees prior to?
Plan and Finance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And what, I guess my biggest question is just given that 12% limit that we have, why this specific area as opposed to other areas? What's sort of the logic behind establishing this as a TID district versus any other particular part of the city?
Sure. I think from the economic development perspective, it's trying to bring additional land inventory with some of those larger sites that would be available, because we've had a challenge with responding to the RFPs where we've been getting requests for 10 to 20 acre sites, and we just haven't had the land and the inventory available, in the city to be able to respond to some of those larger ones. And now we've been doing it with this property once Sarah Investment came forward, but we don't have it shovel ready yet, and we also don't have the TID in place, to help with the assistance. Having said that, I know we've got other kind of priority areas, looking in the future. And next year when we close TID number 4, we'll be well under the 12% equalized value. And we've already talked as a city staff team about looking at some strategic areas within the city of Fitchburg where we want to kind of create some very targeted and focused TIDs. One would be probably on the west side of Verona Road, where now that the Verona Road reconstruction is done, we've got a lot of the buildings and the neighborhood that's kind of it's back to the road, or the entrance to the road, but the population access is to the west side. So what can we do to come back in and encourage kind of renovation, redevelopment, and revitalization, in that corridor? So that's one that we've got our eye on, to come back in and hopefully put something in place. The Thermo Fisher property would be another one there with the balance of the land that they have on their campus. We're pretty well situated up on North Fish Hatchery Road, with the redevelopment TID there. There may be another opportunity on Fish Hatchery Road a little further to the south to the current district, like with the Sun Valley Apartments. You might remember some years ago there was a redevelopment plan for that complex that didn't move forward there, but we've been kind of sharing those plans with some developers that are out there to see if it might pique somebody's interest to look at kind of redevelopment or revitalization or renovation of some of that older multifamily housing stock that we really want to kind of bring up to current amenities and standards there. So.
Thank you. And just my other question is to anybody on Plan Commission or Finance, any comments or any things to note in the conversation about this amendment, or did it just sort of pass through?
I can have Randy speak when we get through a couple other people. Maybe I can put you on the list.
Okay.
And Jay as well. I've got Julia, and then Dave, and then Randy, and then Jay.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. I always learn something from you. So I have like a 3 questions, okay? So my first question is, this district also is going to have like a residential component. And my question is, are we paying some of those costs are going to be absorbed, that they're particular from Blaney Road, is here, and Blaney Road is going to be where the residential area is. So why we are covering those costs in the district when it's a residential area?
Go ahead, Mike.
You want me to answer that? I don't think our intent is to cover those costs for the multifamily residential area. That would be at the cost of the developer. As Greg indicated, just because a project cost item is included in the project plan doesn't mean that we will first do the project or that we will cover the cost of that. And I think we've been very open and transparent with the potential development partners that we would not be participating in that area.
Okay, good to know. My second one? So the other question is, you also have like a Novel Drive extension, phase 2. And when I look at the map, I have the map here, a Google map. Novel extension is like away on the west. It's not part of the tax incremental district area. Why are we incorporating those Novel Drive extension to the tax incremental district when it's not inside the district? You know what I mean?
I think we're kind of coming from the Nobel Drive extension from 2 different directions, from the west through the Fitchburg Technology Campus and Techlands, and then kind of coming from the north and going south into the west, through the Hartung property. I think that, again, is a project cost item that we've identified that we're not quite sure yet what the path of that road is going to take because there's some environmental constraints there with the wetlands and everything. So I think we've been talking internally that our Public Works Department, it probably remains to be determined what will be the actual path of that road. But if we did want to extend it kind of south and to the west to kind of get it into the position as we're bringing Nobel from the west to the east in the other direction, we're hopefully starting to set it up for a future connection of a major artery that would get people up to the U.S. Highway 14 Lacey Road interchange there. But still questions, I think, on how that'll actually be done and if it'll be done.
Okay.
Okay, so it makes sense, but my question is, in order to cover for those costs, shouldn't be those roads included in the tax incremental district? They are outside the district. This is my question. Can we do that?
So I think part of Nobel is actually projected to go through the Hartung property right now. So it only be the part that goes through the Hartung property.
Okay,
Maybe.
get it. Okay.
We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the full road.
Oh, okay,
you
I know.
there.
It's the
Yes.
on the north, on the south part of the property.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Because, in the project plan, the Hartung operation, is projected to stay there for the foreseeable future.
Okay, I get it. So.
Right. Have Dave, and then Randy and Jay after that. Go ahead, Dave.
Question I have, my experience with TIF or TED, is more with blighted or redevelopment. If you looked at downtown Madison where the railroad corridor was, that was a TIF project. This is basically greenfield farmland. Why does it need, why does it have to be a TED? I don't see the fit when it's brand new. It's not hard to develop this. Tell me what I'm missing here, because I'm not in favor. I don't think TED is needed for everything, but maybe Mr. Eller, you can explain it to me here.
One of the other categories of TID is an industrial development, as well, and I think that's where we have effectively utilized it for greenfield development. So some of the examples that we have here in Fitchburg is Fitchburg Center, Fitchburg Tech Campus, Tech Lands, even Uptown Fitchburg, although that's a mixed-use one, there. The Fitchburg Commerce Park back in the day, the Fitchburg Business Park, those were all very successful TIDs that, have made Fitchburg what we are today and allowed for business and industrial development and some of our major employers, to grow and expand. And in each of those circumstances, we've usually participated either with infrastructure and or development incentives to kind of meet that but-for test, because these companies, it's competitive out there. They do have options. And there's just some very recent examples of, companies making choices and decisions that didn't necessarily include Fitchburg here for whatever reason. And there's other factors. It's not just, the TIF assistance out there, but I think this is our local economic development tool to encourage not only tax-based growth and expansion, but also employment, opportunities. And I think the way that Fitchburg approaches the tax increment districts with the pay-as-you-go developer bond, we've really managed the risk for the city of Fitchburg. It's results-oriented. There the developer or the company has to kind of perform what their employment tax base and developer agreement valuation is with us. So I think we strike a very good balance of how to use TIF effectively, not only in greenfield industrial, but I think we're just kind of starting out now in more of the redevelopment area there with North Fish Hatchery, and then we'll be coming in hopefully on the west side of Verona Road there. But I think through the various councils we've had here with the financial stewardship of our partners at Ellers, I think we've got a successful track record in history, but we haven't written a blank check either. I think it's a pretty rigorous, if you talk on the development side and ask them questions, they would probably comment that Fitchburg is one of the more rigorous communities that they go through for a TIF analysis, maybe compared to some other communities that they've looked at.
Thank you.
Randy?
Greg, maybe you have
No,
something to add.
I have nothing further.
Randy and then Jay.
Yeah, I think Mike, you summed it up quite well. It is very competitive out there. And if we want Fitchburg to continue to grow, this is the mechanism to do that. In finance, we asked a number of questions, and some of them were what you had just asked, Joe. And I think maybe, though, Greg, if you could touch upon the question that Alder Gerhardt asked earlier about PAYGO. I mean, I think that was a great question, and it's worth repeating, if you could.
Sure. So I'll kind of give an example of, how the city is typically structured, potentially paying for infrastructure costs. So, we've mentioned the pay-as-you-go method, so let's give an example of how that works. So say a developer is asked by the city to construct $5 million worth of public improvements. So instead of the city borrowing $5 million to pay for those improvements, you're requiring the developer to use their own capital to pay for those improvements. But for the developer to maybe make the project come to fruition, they'd like to get those costs reimbursed back. Under the pay-as-you-go arrangement that the city has used, extensively through development agreements, if a developer only builds enough new value to generate tax revenue of $3.5 million, but they invested $5 million in infrastructure, the city is under no obligation to pay them any more money. They get $3.5 million. They invested $5 million. They don't recover those costs. So it's a way of kind of deferring that risk from the city to the developer, and the developer gets reimbursed to the extent that they generate enough tax revenue. Now, there's been instances where, the city through TIF districts have decided to fund some of that infrastructure investment up front because it was maybe part of a larger redevelopment, part of a larger reconstruction. Fish Hatchery Road comes to mind. Portions of that were funded by the city. Portions of that were of the part funded by the city were attributable to TID 10, so the city is sharing in those costs with the other taxing jurisdictions. So what approach the city uses can be applied from project to project. It can vary from project to project, but I think, utilizing that pay-as-you-go mechanism really puts that burden onto the developer as opposed to the city coming up with the money to pay for those improvements. And so that's a way to manage risk from the city's perspective.
Just one follow-up to Alder Arada-Frada's question earlier. I think you understand Nobel Drive continuing through, and there's some possible environmental concerns, but just so that you're aware of the original site plan, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, from the public hearings, they also put a name out there that could be named anything. It's just Nobel Drive continues on up, so that name could change, if that makes sense.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a few questions. So it looks like the project plan is covering all 4 of those 40-acre parcels, roughly. So it's about 160 acres. But that area where Hartung is currently operating, they're not going to be doing anything there, as Mike said, for the foreseeable future. So why is that area being included in the project plan, in the boundary of the TID district?
Really partially to make sure that we can comply with the land use test and just cover some of the infrastructure that's going to be adjacent, through that particular development. So it's part of the base value of the district, so that existing project isn't going to generate any new tax revenue, but it was kind of identified as part of the geographic area so we could make sure that we comply with those land use tests and cover some of the infrastructure that's adjacent to that site.
Well, the reason I asked that question, you've got according to the project plan, you've got this projected out to what year? 2041. And it's possible that sometime between now and 2041, the Hartung operation may change, but it'll be still in this district. So if it was necessary to use a TID for the redevelopment of that property, it would probably, I'm just guessing because, who's got the crystal ball here, but it would probably have to be separated out of this TID and have its own TID created to support that, whatever that redevelopment project might be.
You'd have the option of either. You could, depending on if that redevelopment, let's say that happens, if that happens earlier in the life of this TIF district, you may be able to accomplish redevelopment of that area within the 20-year life of this district. Just hypothetical, if a redevelopment proposal for that existing site would come forward 15 years from now when you have 5 years left in this TIF district, under current state law, you can do what's called an overlay TIF district, where you can create a new TIF district on top of that existing development and essentially start a new district in its place to have a longer period of time to facilitate that redevelopment. So you would have the option to do either, which would likely be predicated, and which option you choose would depend on when that redevelopment comes forward and if you can still accomplish that within the 20-year life of this district.
If you did, just hypothetically, if you did an overlay district like that, would that have its own 20-year life then?
That is correct.
Okay.
Really, the only different, you can't have a property be in two TIF districts. So an overlay district is, it's only called that because the property was in another TIF district. It then essentially becomes its own new TIF district.
Well, that was my concern, because I didn't want to end up in a situation where we might need to have, an additional TID on top of another TID.
Yeah, no, I mean, you could, it gives you the option either to incorporate it into this TIF district, or if this TIF district is still open and you want to have a longer period of time to redevelop that existing site, you could do the overlay option.
All right. Well, so as far as the developable area, Mike, maybe it looks, there's not good markings on here but it looks like it's maybe 80, it looks like it's slightly over 80 acres that's available for development. Mm-hmm. Although a chunk of that is, going to be wetland and stormwater facilities. All right. So I think there's three relevant numbers in this documentation. And I know we have a lot of pages here and there's a lot of detail in here, but there's three relevant numbers that the council just needs to weigh as you're looking at this. The total projected costs for this project are $34 million. Over the life of this district, it's expected to provide $59 million in increment, which is, a pretty sizable cushion in case something goes horribly wrong. The other relevant number is that full projected build out is expected to be $182 million. So I think the financials for this work out well. I'm always uncomfortable using TIF districts for developing greenfield projects, but in this particular case, there are some mitigating circumstances that I think make this a good project.
I don't have anyone else on the list, so seeing nothing else, we can go ahead and vote. All in favor of approving Resolution R-13322, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay? All right, that is approved. Thank you both.
Thank you.
All right.
And thanks, Greg, for coming out tonight. He's heading out on vacation now.
Oh, wow. All right. Randy, anything else you want to say on Planning Commission at all?
No, I don't believe so.
He's charging double, probably. All right, Public Works, Dave.
Move approval of Resolution R-12922, approving change order with Engberg Anderson for the contract for services for North Fish Hatchery Road Hub, Phase 1, final design. This was postponed from the June 28th meeting.
Second.
Sent by Julia. Did Public Works approve?
Public Works approved.
Did Finance approve?
Finance approved.
And do you want to speak to this, Dave?
Well, the change order, basically there was a change from what was initially proposed to what we're asking them to design finally, and that drove the change order. I believe it's roughly 20% or somewhere in that range, looking at what was asked for initially and what's going in. The board believed that it was justified. This change order was justified.
All right, other questions or comments? Seeing none, we can go ahead and vote then. All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay. All right, that is approved. Anything else for Public Works?
I just have one thing, the well 12 that we were having trouble with, it wasn't pumping. We pulled it out and we found we had bacterial contamination at a joint in the casing. So then, we didn't, essentially had a leak in there, and we had to pull it out and put new in. This is the second time this has happened to us in recent memory. And I'm told that the bacteria or whatever is in the water table, which I don't know. I still think it might have got in there when we put the casing in. Might have been contamination. I don't know, but we need to come up with we're gonna have to modify our maintenance practices, whether it's pulling the casing in the well more often, we will need to change our maintenance practices for our wells. Having this happen twice within a year and a half, it gives me great concern. I've asked Bill to find out if other municipalities have seen the same problem. I'm not aware of this, but it's very disconcerting. These are very expensive repairs.
Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
How far down does the casing go on this well?
I was thinking it was at least a couple 100 feet, but I don't know for sure.
Do you know what size it is? Is it 12-inch or 18-inch?
That I don't recall, Jay.
I'm wondering if it's that long, that means there must be joints in it because
It was at a joint.
it was leaking at a joint.
It was at a joint, and where they put the joint together, there's some compound that goes in there.
Right.
So it seems a little strange. Now, the reason you may ask, why doesn't this eat up our water mains, our cast iron water mains all over the city? That is because after the water comes up, we chlorinate it,
Right.
and that kills it. Obviously, we don't want to put chlorine back down into the aquifer, to try to. So, again, this is an issue. Bill will be working on some new practices that I feel we're gonna have to adopt.
So
ignore this.
Is this bacteria eating the material that seals? Oh, it's
The
just
metal.
eating away at the metal.
Yes, I believe.
Is there a different material?
This is beyond me. We have to ask Bill. Chad, you want to jump in?
All good questions, and I have a meeting coming up with Bill Balke and Anna Bijak to talk about our well repairs that have taken place, to get an update on those, as well as the findings related to these microbes and those sorts of things. So any notable information that comes out of that, I will certainly be sure to share a summary with the council.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you. Before we go to Park Commission, we do have some people both here in the audience and online for some other items. So I'd like to move those up if possible. If someone could move up on the agenda 9A, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and also 10A. I believe that's all the people who are here from the public.
So moved.
Moved by Jay.
Second.
Second by Gabriella. All in favor of amending the agenda, say aye.
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 All right, so again, it's 9A, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 10A. So next up would be 9A, 4, and 5. We got Mark Jones here, and I can actually have a motion first. That's probably, Planning Commission. Yeah, Randy, do you want to do the motion for 9A, 4?
You do want me to do them separate, though.
Yeah.
Really,
we got to do them separate motions.
Yeah, the discussion, though, is
4 and 5 are
they're
related.
intertwined. Yeah. Motion to approve R-161-22, formerly CS-2453-22, approving certified survey map request CS-2453-22 by Mark Jones, agent for Jones Family Signing Farm Trust, and Andy and Kelly Lowry, to subdivide 2 residential lots and alter 2 agricultural tracts.
Second.
Seconded by Jay. Did Ag and Rural Affairs approve?
Yes.
The plan approve.
And plan approved.
Right. Mark, do you want to speak to this?
I can take.
You want Mark to speak to it, or you want to?
Well, Mark, since you're here, go ahead, Mark. Yeah, otherwise I could, yeah.
Thank you very much. Mark Jones, 2266 South Sain Road, City of Fitchburg. It's the family farm. My daughter has lived in one of the houses. There was 2 houses on this parcel for 10 years, and she wants to have it in her name to do some remodeling. So that's where the request kind of started. And then we had to correct the property line, as that was the whole thing that started. So in order to do that, we bought some land for the neighbors so that it was a conforming parcel. And the operations aren't going to change. We continue to operate the farm. If either of those houses comes up for sale, they have to be sold back to the trust. So that will control that. So the only issue is Public Works requested us to hook onto city water. And we have cattle. They're not on this farm at this point in time, but we hope to bring them home by next year. I do not want to put cattle on chlorinated water. They don't recommend it. In the volume, it just isn't recommended. So we're asking for a variance from Public Works. If you look at the water system that was in that area, it's a reduced size. I was on the town board when we created that. It was reduced, it was put in as a reduced size to restrict growth. So there was very little extra in the sizing of the pipe. And the idea behind that is to not encourage any additional growth in that area. And so we're asking that our neighbors next door are not hooked onto it. And that was part of the original farm there too. And we're asking for a variance for that. So just so everybody knows, we're working with zoning and Public Works to come up with the wording for that, how we're going to do that. So if anybody has a question or an issue with that, please, Dave, go ahead.
How would you water these cattle?
We have a private well now.
So you would be able, you would be able to maintain that private well for that application, I believe. Our ordinance, we want you to hook up to city water if a house is sold or changed.
Right.
But we won't require, I think you could maintain that well for watering the cattle.
It does allow, the ordinance does allow that can stay there. I think there's some things that have to be done in order for that to stay.
Probably some testing.
We're asking for the variance because we just redid our well, put a new pump and everything in it. And if you look at that system, there are several that aren't hooked on. In fact, there was a new house built on Irish Lane 2 years ago that drilled their own well and did not hook on. And that was part of the Stowman farm. It was separated, but they weren't required to hook on. So there is history for the variances.
Okay. We'll deal with that later. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, if it came down to it, Dave, if I'm required to hook on, I won't, and I will leave the house off of the. I just don't think that I want to put cattle on.
No, I don't. I won't either.
Yeah. So that's.
Any other questions for Mark at all?
Jay.
Yeah, is there, I see the 30-foot wide water easement. Is there a water line in that easement right now?
No, the water line is on the west side of the road. We're on the east side of the road.
Right. So they would have to build a pipe over there to hook on anyway.
You would have to. There were no hookups put onto those pipes when that was put in, and that was done on purpose to restrict growth.
When did that easement get stuck on there?
I don't know the answer to that.
It was a long time ago, though.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, what would have to happen is you have to core drill the water line, and then you have to bore the road and bore up to the house. The estimate cost I got, rough estimates were about $10,000 per hookup, and that's pretty substantial. So, anyway, that's what we're asking for, just so everybody's aware of it.
So right now the house that is showing on lot 3, that's existing, right?
Yes, both my daughter's house and my house.
Lot 2 and lot 3 are existing.
They are existing, yeah.
And then all those other ag buildings are existing also, I presume.
Right, that's our farm operation. So.
Okay, so this is not showing anything new proposed.
Correct.
Structures or anything. It's just this is the way it's been forever. We're just dividing the land.
Well, it's an estate planning situation. Is what basically it boils down to. And there is one split on that farm left, but we have no intention of using it at this point in time.
Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. All right, that's approved. Next one is related to the same project. Go ahead, Randy.
Yes, motion to approve ordinance 2022-0-25, formerly RZ-2455-22, zoning ordinance amendment approving rezone request RZ-2455-22 by Mark Jones, agent for Jones Family, Sain Farm Trust, and Andy and Kelly Lowry to rezone properties from exclusive agricultural district to low-density residential, small lot agricultural and exclusive agricultural districts to separate two existing residential homes onto their own parcels located on South Sain Road.
Second.
Seconded by Jay. Did Ag and Rural Affairs approve?
Yes.
Did Plan Commission approve?
And plan.
Anything additional, Mark?
No, thank you.
All right. Any additional questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. All right, that's approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Randy, I think this next one's yours as well.
Motion to approve resolution R-16-22, formerly CS-2460-22, approving certified survey map request CS-2460-22 by Miranda Glebes, agent for Lacey Family Irrevocable Trust to rezone property from exclusive agricultural district to low-density residential district to separate an existing residence onto its own parcel.
Second.
Seconded by Jay. Did Ag and Rural Affairs approve?
We did, yes.
Did Plan Commission approve?
Plan Commission approved as well.
All right. Do you want time? We have Tom Lacey to speak. Do you want to speak this time?
If anybody's got any questions, no, I was pretty basic. Mom and Dad passed away last year, and now we're trying to get the next generation into the house. We're going to keep the farm as the farm, and they just want to own the property there, so we just need to get that zone so they can move in.
Yeah, I think it's your sister, I think, is going to be buying it, right?
My daughter.
Or daughter, sorry, daughter.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
generation number 6 with generation number 7 also.
Fantastic. Any questions at all?
So that's lot 2 that's being created, right?
Correct.
What is this weird shaped thing in the middle?
That's the property that my wife and I live on that was separated off from the farm initially back in 95.
Is there
1.5 acres.
Is there a house on it, or
Correct.
The
there's
house
two
is
houses
just not shown on the on this CSM.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, there's two houses
Yep.
out there.
Yep, there's 2 houses there. We're about 100 yards apart.
Anything else? All right, seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, say nay. That is approved, and this next one is related to that as well. Go ahead, Randy.
Yes, this is the ordinance. Motion to approve ordinance 2022-0-26, formerly RZ-2459-22, zoning ordinance amendment approving rezone request RZ-2459-22 by Miranda Glebes, agent for Lacey Family Farm Irrevocable Trust to rezone property from exclusive agricultural district to low-density residential district to separate an existing residence onto its own parcel located on Wayland Road.
Second.
Seconded by Jay. Did Planning Commission approve?
Both
And Ag and Rural
commissions
Affairs?
approved.
All right. And nothing else, I'm guessing.
Nope.
Same thing.
Yep.
Any additional questions? Didn't think so. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. That is approved as well. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, and then let's do number 8 next, Randy. That's you again.
All right. Motion to approve resolution R-163-22, formerly FP-2458-22, approving final plat request FP-2458-22 by Cole Payne, agent for Fitchburg Lands LLC, for approval of replat of outlot 57 of Second Edition Terra Vesa for Paxton Place 3 to create 8 lots for 8 single-family attached units.
there a second?
Second.
Sent by Jade. The Plan Commission approve?
Plan Commission approved.
All right. I think we've got, I don't know if, I think it's Chad is online. I'm not sure. Do you want to speak to this, Chad?
Nothing to add, but available for questions.
All right. Randy, do you want to speak to it, or you want me to speak to the project?
I guess I can speak to it. The proposal is to replat Outlot 57 in Terra Vista, second edition, 8 lots in order to build 8 attached single-family homes. And this was approved by council and Plan Commission back in 2020 as well. So
Yeah, these are 0 lot lines.
0 lot lines.
Units, owner occupied. They've done this a few times out there, and it's been very popular. So it's great to see that they're doing some more of this for more home ownership. I wish more people would do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Any questions on this one, Jay?
Just one. Is this, are these expected to be like a condo situation, or are they just going to be conforming to the regular Terra Vista requirements?
Chad, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, they're technically not condos because they're fee simple lots and 0 lot lines.
Right.
I'm not sure what you mean by the typical Terra Vesta
Well,
requirement.
I guess what I mean is, is it expected that all 8 of these are going to be cooperatively maintaining the yard and snow removal, or is that because
Yes.
these are narrow lots? Each one will have
Yes.
to mow their own grass, or however that works.
We put into place a shared maintenance agreement that's managed by a manager so that they pay fees much like a condo, except for it's not technically a condo.
Right. Okay, that was the
That makes
question.
sense?
Perfect. Yep. Thank you. Seeing nothing else, I think the dog approves.
He does.
All right. Anyone, let's see. So, see nothing else, we can go to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right. The ayes and the dog have it. All right. Moving along to 10A. And is this a finance thing, maybe, Randy? Is this? I think this is the one that you want. This is the, yeah.
It
the one
is.
that you have.
Yeah, you're jumping around here.
Sorry. I know I'm trying to confuse you.
Yeah, you're doing a good job. All right. Motion to approve Resolution R-146-22, approving the amendments to the cooperation agreement between the City of Fitchburg and Dane County Urban County Consortium, which was postponed from June 28, 2022 meeting.
Is that as amended?
As amended, yes.
Okay.
Second.
Now,
All right. Seconded by Jay. And then,
I need to read the amendment.
all right. Please do.
Everybody, please stay awake. Approving the amended cooperation agreement between the City of Fitchburg and the Dane County Urban County Consortium, which allows the city to apply for Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, and Home Investment Partnerships, HOME, funding through Dane County, Wisconsin, that administers the program on behalf of the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. Whereas the City of Fitchburg is a partner in Dane County Urban County Consortium, and whereas as a participant in the Dane County Urban County Consortium, the city can apply for a Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, and Home Investment Partnerships, HOME, programs through Dane County, Wisconsin, which administers the grant funding on behalf of the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. And whereas HUD is requiring participating municipalities to execute an amendment to the existing 1998 cooperation agreement. And whereas the amendment required by HUD to existing 1998 cooperation agreement and a list of participating communities are included in the supporting documents. And whereas the current version of the amended cooperation agreement includes the amendment HUD is requiring to the existing 1998 cooperation agreement. Now be it hereby resolved by the Fitchburg Common Council that it approves the amended cooperation agreement between the City of Fitchburg and the Dane County Urban County Consortium. Be it further resolved by the Fitchburg Common Council that it authorizes the mayor to sign the documents attached and directs the city clerk to retain a copy of the document.
I have so missed having you read to us.
I know you have, Jay.
Is there
Like a bedtime story.
Second.
seconded
Second.
by Gabrielle? All right. So, do you want me to give the 2-second reason why? Or
I
do
thought
you
Mike
want
did a fine job in finance.
All right, Mike.
Finance.
Sure.
By the way.
This dates back to 1998 when Dane County became an entitlement county to qualify for CDBG and home funds. And we were one of the original participating communities to sign on to that consortium at that time. There was an agreement in your packet there that dates back to 1998 with Mayor Doug Morissette's signature on it. At that time, Clerk Joe Parisi, but one of the signatures that was missing on the document that we found in our record was former County Executive Kathleen Falk. So as we were working with Peter from Dane County for the request for the amendment, that's a requirement from HUD, we were trying to find a fully signed agreement. They couldn't find one. We couldn't find one. So in your packet, there's also an updated agreement. So if you're a new community signing on to the program now, there's an amended cooperative agreement that already includes the amendment language that's required by HUD. So the collective decision was that we should just go forward with the new updated agreement that already has the amendment language in there versus amending the 1998 agreement. So that's why it's kind of a little bit disjointed tonight to why we drafted the language for Randy to offer the amended resolution. And we do have Peter online in case there's any questions. The amendment that HUD is requiring relates back to the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974, some of the provisions of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and some of the housing provisions that are there. And this is a requirement from HUD for all participating communities, not just for Fitchburg.
Yeah, so I think as a staff, and we were kind of went, oh, of course we want to approve this amendment, and then we couldn't find the original with
Yes.
all the signatures, so we said, well, we should have something that everyone has actually signed, so.
And it has been an important tool for the city. You know, we tapped into funding for the Renaissance on the Park for the land right down to do the single-family workforce housing and the Habitat homes over there. Also money for the Boys and Girls Club. And I think other housing projects that we've had here in Fitchburg have received maybe some home and CDBG funds as well.
Any further questions at all? All right, seeing none, then we go ahead to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. That is approved.
Thanks, everybody. And thanks, Peter, for sticking around.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
All right, back to the regular agenda now, and we do some updates, some maybe fairly quick updates since we got a lot going on yet. Park Commission, Julia.
Yeah, so we met on July 7th. We discussed the Stony Prairie Park planning. We are almost done with the final design. So the next step is to present the final, the draft to the neighbors for comment. We also discussed the 2023 operating budget for the Parks Department, and also the capital improvement plan. And that's it.
All right, thank you. Library Board.
We met last week. One of the concerns that came up in our meeting was the need for shelvers. This seems to be a revolving door kind of position, so if anybody's out there who might know a teenager that has nothing to do for the rest of the summer, our library would love to hire them to come and work and do some of that necessary work. The other thing, which I'll bring up later, is we have another library in the park tomorrow in the town of Madison at 2 o'clock.
Excellent. Commissioner Agent Mall.
Nothing to report. I was called out for work at the last meeting. I haven't caught up with Jill yet, so I'll get an update.
All right, RCC.
A couple of things. Phil's working on some reports on our energy updates, you know, exactly where we are, renewable energy goals and a Green Tier Legacy scorecard. So once those are complete, I can bring those back to the council, but those are in the works. Also, the sustainability plan RFP is in the works, but just with some of the vacancies in public works and planning, and Phil is going to be out for a little while. It's probably not going to go out till January of 2023, just unavoidable given the staffing constraints. And that's all.
All right, what about TTC?
Yeah, we met on July 14, and we spent a lot of time talking about the transit shuttle planning. Andrew went through a lot of a potential timeline and what that could look like and all the things that we're going to have to figure out in order to actually make that happen. Obviously, it's very complicated, so he was kind of doing sort of, Jill from the senior center was also there to discuss it. And it's interesting, it was kind of a brain dump. Andrew's leaving, it was his last meeting, so he was kind of giving all the information that he had before we moves on. And I think we're going to be talking a lot more in TTC about how that actually might function so that we have some input for the council to consider as a committee. So that's forthcoming. And that's all.
All right. What about CETA?
Our next meeting is Thursday, July 28th. Madison Development Corporation will be giving an overview on the venture debt program and also the Dane Workforce Housing Fund.
All right. Ag and Rural Affairs.
Ag and Rural Affairs, we met last week. We addressed what we just addressed, the certified survey maps and the rezoning. So,
all right. EMS.
We just went over the budget, and seems like it's right on track. And then we're also going to be starting the contract negotiation soon. So there's that.
All right. Bike Committee.
It's not the most appropriate time to have a ton of updates, but there are. We haven't met formally since our last council meeting, but the committee actually met to talk about the journey to gold. So there's a lot of to-do items that each of the committee members, as well as the city staff, did. There's a lot of changes to the criteria to apply to gold status. And one of the biggest ones is focus on equity and inclusion in terms of bike infrastructure. So the committee's really working hard to ensure we're tracking everything that we're doing, and that in our plans we include focusing on populations that traditionally have less access to cycling. The other thing that is coming up is there's a Fitchburg Police Community Night Out. It's on Tuesday, August 9th, between 5 and 7 p.m. at McKee Farms Park. And they are looking for volunteers, so if you're interested, you can get in contact with me and I can pass the request along to our committee chair. Lastly, there is I just want to thank city staff for always being really diligent about, needs. There was a concern from citizens about Seminole Highway, the crossing of the Capital City Trail. There's just a big risk of accidents. So after a resident relayed that to me, I relayed it to our staff, and probably within a week or week and a half, we had lights installed in that crossing. So I just encourage residents that if other safety issues come up to, don't hesitate to get in contact with council members or city staff about that. And then finally, we have been awarded a $150,000 park and ride grant. Initially, we had applied for $75,000, but just because of the hub, the ask increased, and we were awarded that, and an official press release should be coming out on that really soon. That's all I have, I believe.
All right. Thank you. Tree Advisory. Julie?
No report.
All right. Landmarks? Anything?
No report.
All right. Housing Advisory.
Not meeting till the 13th of September.
All right. Healthy Neighborhoods?
We're still waiting for something to happen.
All right. Finance, anything, Rainey?
Nothing further.
All right. What about personnel?
No report.
All right. And public safety, Dave?
Move approval, operator license needs special attention for Paige Marie Ray.
Second.
Sent by Jay. You want to speak to this?
This required special attention. He had an OWI and in 2020 and had not yet completed her assessment or the post assessment that is scheduled. So her operator's license is approved contingent on her completing that, which we believe, Jay, will be in August or sometime.
Yeah, August 27th.
So we did approve that. It had been rejected by the police, and public safety did approve hers, again, contingent on completing the assessment class.
All right. Any questions or comments?
I just wanted to make one comment, and that is that the memo we got from the police department said that the police department was denying her application based on her being a repeat offender, which is not the case. So I don't know how that error got made, but if we could look into that and correct that for future situations, because we should have the right reason for rejecting an application when we do that.
Jim, do you have a comment?
Jay answered my question. I was going to ask why it was overturned over the police recommendation. So,
all right. Seeing nothing else, all in favor of approving the operator license, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, nay? All right, that's approved. Anything else, Dave?
No.
All right, we can go to new business. This looks like Public Works for the first one, Dave.
I'll move approval resolution R-13222, approving agreement with K&L Engineering for construction-related services for 2022 South Sain Road reconstruction.
Second.
Seconded by Jay. Did Public Works approve?
Public Works approved.
Did Finance approve?
Finance approved.
All right, what's this, Dave?
So we'll be hiring K&L to perform inspection-related services on this project and construction management. That we do not have the resources right now to do this, and it's something we have done in the past. And Bill is comfortable with this arrangement.
All right, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor, say. Oh, yeah, Julie.
So is in the budget to pay for these services, or from which fund are coming?
Well, I believe we would have been incurring costs, city staff time doing this if we had the resources, which would have been included in the project cost. So I believe it is covered.
Yes, this is being covered. As was noted in the referral sheet, third paragraph, funding being split between TID, general fund, and utilities based on assumed construction cost percentages, with the exception that sewer and water utilities share on the contract is reduced compared to construction costs and a couple other things in there. It does require a 2/3 vote as well, by the way.
All right. Anything else? No. Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. All right, that is approved. Next up, Illinois Public Works.
Move for approval resolution R-13822, purchase of pedestrian lights for second addition to Terra Vesa.
Second.
Seconded by Jay. And what's this one?
Public Works approved, yes.
All right, and Finance approved?
Finance approved.
All right, what's this, Steve?
So these are lights needed for the subdivision. I believe there was 17 or not. These are a little shorter. These are, I believe, 17 or 19 feet high. They meet the clear sky requirements, and they were anticipated for this project.
All right, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay. That is approved. This looks like next one is Finance. Ready?
Yes, motion to approve resolution R-149-22, approving the intergovernmental agreement regarding town employee severance payments and the severance agreement template.
Second.
Seconded by Jay. Did Finance approve?
Finance approved.
All right, and do you want to speak to this, or do you want someone
It's
else?
pretty complicated. Is Misty still on, or?
I believe she is.
Yeah.
Hey, Misty, go ahead.
Yeah. So the town of Madison is dissolving. A portion of it's coming to the city of Fitchburg. A portion of it's coming to the city of Madison. 20 years ago, when this agreement was developed, there was a cooperative plan that included severance benefits for town employees that existed on the day that the town was dissolved. That was relatively vague. There's some details that we wanted to work out. And then from a process perspective, it's much more effective and efficient if the town makes those payments to the employees themselves rather than them having to become employees, quote unquote, of either one of the cities. So this agreement, the three municipalities, City of Fitchburg, City of Madison, and the Town of Madison, have worked through this intergovernmental agreement that's in front of you now for approval. If it's approved, the town would make those payments directly. At this point, we expect the town will have sufficient cash to make those payments, and then the cost will be allocated through the allocation of the rest of the town assets and liabilities. However, there is a clause in the resolution and in the agreement that if the town doesn't have enough cash, they will invoice each of the municipalities their respective share. So while I don't think that's what will end up happening, this resolution does give me authority to make that payment to the town as required, and we will do a subsequent budget amendment using fund balance to pay that amount if we need to. So that's the intergovernmental agreement. There's also an employee severance agreement. So each employee that receives this severance payment has a separate agreement that will be executed between all of the municipalities and the employee. This resolution authorizes or gives council authorization for that template. So we will use that same template for each one of the individual employees that will get a severance payment. And I don't know the total amount at this point. Part of this intergovernmental agreement, if it's approved tonight, is that the town of Madison has to provide us an estimate for budget purposes on August 1st. And then obviously that will continue to get refined between now and the end of the town.
Any questions for Misty at all? Yeah, go ahead, Julia. Angel.
So, Misty, okay, you answered part of my question is how much or the range, you know what I mean? Do you have any idea how many employees are still in the town?
So we have a ballpark estimate. I'm going to guess it's in the dozen or less is my guess, but we don't have specifics right now.
Roughly 12.
12? And the average salary, you don't have any idea? No?
Not that we would share at this point. So we will get a more formal estimate. So when the payments are made, or if I have to do the budget amendment because we need to pay the cash out, we would definitely have a final answer by then.
Okay, so you will share that amount with the council?
Absolutely.
Okay.
As this progresses further, that'll be part of that update that we'll look to provide at Committee of the Whole either in August or September.
Another one? Yep.
This is for you, Misty, another one. This is more internal control, you know, on page, I think, item number 5, when they talk about the severance payment. So who is going to be monitoring that? You're going to be an external, someone monitoring those payments, that they are the correct payment calculation, you know? Is the city of Fitchburg and Madison what are the internal controls they're going to put in place so to be sure that, you know, they are the correct amount? Okay.
So the first part of our internal control is based on that agreement. So the higher level elected officials, the mayors, the clerks, them will sign that template agreement with all the blanks not filled in. Then the town and the employee will fill in the blanks with how much each employee is expected to get. And we won't have the final execution on behalf of the city or on behalf of the city of Madison done until we're verifying that those amounts are accurate. So that's kind of that first step that we need to do to make sure that it's in compliance with the agreements that we have and that the employee is entitled to that amount that's listed. And then when the actual payments happen, so the current plan is that their administrator, who is also their finance person and a variety of other hats, is going to stay on as an LTE staff to kind of help us through this transition. She will be an employee of the city of Madison, and they have a manager assigned to that. So the manager would be able to review that, and then they'll also do a final stub audit that last year. So there'll be that double check as well.
Joe, go ahead.
Might be a chat question, but are there any plans for staff of the town of Madison to either like apply to similar jobs in Fitchburg or the city of Madison?
At this point in time, I think any town employee who has an interest in applying to jobs either in the city of Madison or city of Fitchburg has done so, or if they have applied, they have not been selected for a position. So any employee that's left, I don't think they all are likely to find a job in either municipality. That time has passed for that opportunity, and it is possible. We were just informed within the last week or so that another employee has left the town for other employment. So it's kind of a fluid situation as to how many employees will actually remain at the time of the attachment. And the employee obviously has to be there at the time of attachment in order to qualify for that severance as well.
And I know that we had done some recruitments or opportunities for like the police department, for example, if someone was interested there. I think Public Works or the highway department maybe had another kind of thing where if we had an opening and we let people from the town apply for that.
Yeah, and I should add, and Misty, if you have accurate numbers on this, let me know. But the city of Madison has hired a number of former town employees. I think they hired some firefighters when the fire department dissolved and was fire service was contracted by the city of Madison. And I think they've also taken on a couple of clerical and a few of their public works staff as well over the last year or so. Misty, do you happen to have an accurate or a number? I'm thinking it's right around a half a dozen employees in total have gone from the town to the city over the last couple of years as part of this whole process. No, we have not had any added. We have had applications, at least as it relates to the police officer recruitments in the past, and ultimately those folks were not selected.
All right. Seeing nothing else, we can go ahead and vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, say nay. All right, that is approved. We did a bunch of these already, so we'll go down to 9, and that is Plan Commission. Randy. All the way to 9. No, we did 8. This is essentially you're approving something we approved a couple times already, but after a year it needs to be reapproved.
Motion to approve Resolution R-164-22, formerly CS-2456-22, approving certified survey map request CS-2456-22 by John DeFieri, agent for Lacey Ridge Townhomes LLC, for approval of a certified survey map to create one lot on property along Notre Dame Drive, outlot 1 CSM 14487.
Second.
Seconded by Jade. Plan approved.
Plan Commission approved.
And do you want to speak to this, or do you want me to? I kind of just did it.
Kind of just did, but I mean,
Yeah.
do you want to add anything to that? We've
Been
approved
already
it a couple
approved.
times.
There's no changes, but after a year, the approval has to get redone. And I know they've worked with staff to clear up a couple things, so we expect them to start construction soon. These are condos, home ownership, so that's also very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
So
Yeah, Jay.
this is going to be a continuation of the development to the east, right?
So
The
there's
condos that are already over there.
No, it's not part of the crossing.
It's not?
No, and it's a different style. These are taller. The crossing is 1 story, and
Right.
these are essentially 3. It's garage with 2 stories on top.
All right.
Yep. But Notre Dame Drive will, as a road, will be constructed further up as part of this. Anything else? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, say nay. That is approved. And then number 10, Gabriella.
I move approval of Resolution R-16522, a resolution in support of democracy and nonpartisan election administration.
Second.
Seconded by Jay. And do you want to speak to this?
Yes, so this is a symbolic resolution, very much so, but I think it's important. You know, words are important. That's why we pass, where the mayor does proclamations, et cetera. Oh, and one more thing. Thanks to the mayor for allowing a direct referral so that we could get this done before the August primary election. That was the reason why I asked for a direct referral. And I'm sure we all know over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of really targeted attacks on election officials like city clerks, poll workers at polling places, and, you know, really a lot of bullying, threatening, kind of scary activity for people that are kind enough to work our elections. And at the same time, there's a lot of discussion about moving elections away from our nonpartisan local control into partisan hands. And so this resolution is focused on, you know, talking about our support of democracy, nonpartisan election administration, and also importantly, our Fitchburg staff and the residents that work on elections. So I'll go ahead and read the the final three clauses in the resolution just for public to hear. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Fitchburg Common Council expresses full confidence in Wisconsin's system of nonpartisan election administration led by the Wisconsin Election Commission. We call on state lawmakers to cease all attempts to undermine, disrupt, or revoke the Wisconsin Election Commission's authority over Wisconsin elections, as well as the authority of municipal clerks. Be it further resolved that we support our friends and neighbors who serve as poll workers and local election officials, including our municipal clerk and their staff. And be it further resolved that we strongly oppose any future attempts to add a partisan takeover of our elections, including any efforts by state lawmakers to override the will of Wisconsin voters or to transfer authority over election administration to a partisan entity. And this is similar to resolutions being passed across lots of municipalities and counties all over Wisconsin.
All right, Dave, question.
You know, I prefer to stay focused on Fitchburg things or getting into the state. I like to stay focused just on Fitchburg, and I don't, you know, is my point here. It seemed like, you know, your points you made seem very partisan, you know, you know, this is a comment I would make. I'm not sure this is needed. I think we do a great job here in Fitchburg in administering our elections. You know, I have the highest confidence in our staff. And
I go to Jay and then come back to you. Yeah, Jay, go ahead.
I think the issue involved, Dave, is that the state, be it through the legislature or through the Supreme Court, has decided to take further control over what's going on in our local elections and prevent our city clerk and others involved from administering elections in a way that we see fit. And this is basically to tell the legislature that we don't like that action because we do a perfectly fine job in Fitchburg of administering elections.
I still don't think it's needed.
Oh, that's not correct. Gabriel.
Yeah, and just to address Dave's question, I mean, this is very much in support of our election system. We do this well. Our city clerk, our city staff do this well. Our poll workers do this well. And we want elections to stay with local control with our nonpartisan election officials. And that is not a guaranteed certainty anymore with the politics that's at hand. And so I think this is very much a Fitchburg issue because we want our elections to be administered the way they have been and the way they've successfully been for, you know, as long as Fitchburg has been a city.
All right. Seeing nothing else, we can go ahead and vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay?
Nay.
All right, that passes. All right, so we did unfinished business A already, which gets us to B. And Randy, I believe that's a finance thing there, if you want to do B.
10B?
Yes.
Motion to approve Resolution R-135-22, adopting the 2023 through 2032 Capital Improvement Plan.
Second.
All right, sent by Jay. And I don't know, do you want me to kick it over to Misty? Misty, you want to kind of tell us what's going on here?
So absolutely. So tonight we are going to vote on each one of the council amendments. So to recap the process, the mayor submitted what he believed was the priority for the capital projects over the next 10 years. This is a planning document. The council then submitted their amendments a couple weeks back. There are 10 of them that were submitted. They've been available on the website. We had a public hearing today to hear feedback back on those amendments. Tonight, the council is going to vote on each of those amendments. You are allowed to amend the amendment. So if you want to do something a little bit different within that CIP project, that is okay. But we will not be amending any new projects that haven't been vetted with the public. In the packet that's available on the website, so the amendment packet, there is all of them put together. I'll share my screen quick. The easiest way to navigate this document is using the bookmarks that are over here to the left. There are a bunch of summary documents in here. So it's 4 pages that look similar, except they have a different color. So the first one is the total project costs. Then there's also the changes that the amendments would make to property taxes, changes to borrowing, and changes to operating costs. And then there's a form for each one of the amendments that are there. There's 3 of them that have a staff memo associated with it. So hopefully you got a chance to read those as well. And then tonight, when we are done voting on each one of the amendments, we will vote on the resolution, which will adopt the CIP, and that will be the official adopted CIP for this time frame. But keep in mind, this is just the first hurdle. So what that means is the projects that are included in 2023 just get put into that first draft of the budget, but can still be changed between now and when the budget is adopted. So this is a planning document so that we can look at a full 10-year horizon and know what big capital projects are coming down.
I think just wanted to add to that is that if I do change something that we approve in the CIP, that we do call that out specifically. So it's not like we can hide any changes or anything like that. If we do have to take something out in the operating, then we do call that out. Chad.
Misty, would you mind reminding the council about the status of balancing the capital improvement plan over the first 5 years and the efforts that were undertaken to make that balance, as well as the concerns that we have moving forward in years, I believe, 3, 4, and 5 and beyond?
Yeah, so the CIP is a 10-year document. It's split into the two pieces. There's the front 5 years and then the back 5 years. So the front 5 years are the projects that we've vetted a little bit more thoroughly. We know are going to happen. The back 5 years are really placeholder projects. There will be a lot of changes between now and when those projects actually happen. So really we want to focus on those first 5 years. When we're doing that, the way that we get it to quote unquote balance, even though this is not an official budget document, is we try to set a capital tax levy that mirrors the levy limit adjustment that we're expecting to get each year. And that levy limit adjustment is based primarily on net new construction. So we did make assumptions for what we thought net new construction will be over the same time period as the CIP, and then looked at the different projects that are proposed and tried to get that as close to that target levy as what we could. There were some, I'll call them creative uses of how we were able to get that to balance this year, both centered around fund balance. One fund balance strategy I am hesitantly okay with. The other fund balance strategy I don't believe is a good option for the city because it digs a hole for us in the future. So the first fund balance strategy was we are using fund balance for that next replacement item of something, and then we are setting up the replacement fund for all the years after. And the reason why I'm okay with that is because the use of that fund balance for that next replacement really is a one-time thing because we are establishing the funding source for every year going forward. So it's at least acceptable use of fund balance that way. The one that I'm concerned about, which is the year 3, 4, and 5 that Chad mentioned, is we are also supplementing our expenditure restraint aid with fund balance, not for a specific project, not for a one-time thing, just because our expenditure restraint aid is going down, we're filling that hole with fund balance. That strategy I have a lot of heartburn over. At least it doesn't kick in until year 3, so we have a couple of years to try to figure it out, but I am very concerned about what that will mean for future years and how we get reliant upon the use of fund balance by initiating that strategy at all. So that one made me uncomfortable.
Thank you, Misty.
All right, so we'll go through these one by one, and I'll have whoever made the motion kind of do a motion, and we'll let them speak to this first. If there's a lot of discussion on these, I'll ask for a roll call. If it seems like it's pretty cut and dry, I'd rather not spend the time. I don't want it to be 1 o'clock in the morning like it was last year, if we can help it. So we'll see.
We can get there.
Jay's is committed to 1 o'clock in the morning. All right.
We can make that happen.
All right. So we can go right into it then. And amendment number 1 is Gabriella.
Yeah, I move approval of amendment number 1 for project 1038, add solar canopies over parking lots on city property.
Second.
Seconded by Jay, and go ahead and speak to this.
Yeah, thank you. So this is an idea that was first discussed in RCC and with Phil Groupie, asking the question, can we add more solar panels? And the answer is that there's really no more roof space in the city of Fitchburg. All the roof space that we have that can accommodate solar panels, which is not all, it has to be able to do that, are covered in solar panels. And so then it becomes, where do we add them? And obviously last year I talked about the potential of adding them at wells, lift and pumping stations where possible. But I think the next best option, if we want to add solar panels, they have to be ground mounted, and there's a potential to do the cover over parking. That's something that's more commonly done nowadays over at places, and the benefit of doing it at the city hall parking lots is that we're obviously the center of a lot of the energy needs for the city, so it would be going straight into the energy needs of the city. I paired this potential construction with the parking lot resurfacing. CIP project number 62 has parts of the safest parking lot being rebuilt separately, but once in 2026 and another part in 2028. So I paired this addition to that reconstruction of the parking lots. This cost is very much an estimate. Obviously, there had to be a lot more research, and Phil Group is interested in doing that, but I think it's important to get it in the CIP so it can be researched. And I do think this could be essentially something that could have been identified in the sustainability plan. But again, I think the horizon is far enough out that there's time to do research. Also, very much there's opportunities for cost-sharing arrangements, sometimes even creative ones. I know a lot of nonprofits do cost-sharing arrangements that are tax incentives that I know Misty has talked with former Alder Hartman about, that I'd be interested in exploring, even if it's not something we ended up doing. And then also just grant funding is available for things like this. Yeah, I'll leave it there and happy to take questions.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, Dave.
I'll just, I work in this field, and I see behind the curtain, I guess I'd say, and I think our better option to achieve the sustainability would be to purchase solar capacity from the utilities that are building these large projects all over. I would prefer we just purchase the capacity to meet our needs, and then we're not having infrastructure that we have to maintain. If this does pass, I think we should be amendment that no panels can be purchased by us that are made in China. All panels have to be domestically made. I think that's foolish to be purchasing panels from China that's using coal power to build them. So that's my two comments. I'd rather we don't I'd rather we purchase the capacity, solar capacity from utilities, and I don't want any panels from China. Thank you.
All right, Randy, go ahead.
Dave, you make a very good point, and I would have to agree with you on that. This is an interesting concept. At first, I thought it was a little crazy, but the more and more I thought about it, it's like, well, maybe it's doable. I mean, you have it far enough out in the CIP. I think that at least allows us time to do some research and for us to understand how we would execute this plan. And I'm concerned about, a structure over a parking lot. I mean, we live in, the Midwest. We're in the Midwest, and we're dealing with snow. So there's a lot of factors that have to come into play. So overall, I guess I'm in support of. Yeah, I'm in support of solar. So this particular concept is just needs a little bit more work, at least in my mind.
All right, Gabrielle.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It needs more work, and we might not do it all over all of the parking lots. Like maybe it's only part, so maybe we don't do it in 2028 when we do that instead of 2026. I think there's a lot of variability and a lot of things that need to be explored. Also, your point about solar panels made locally is well taken, Dave. I'm very much an advocate for reducing climate change, and transferring something like that across the ocean is quite a lot of energy and usage that I think is unnecessary. So I think that's something that we should maybe talk about making a note of in the sustainability plan. Thanks.
All right. Don't see anyone else on this one, so we'll go ahead and vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed, nay.
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 All right, I believe the ayes have that. And we can go on to number 2.
I'm trying to figure out how to say this one.
Motion first.
Okay, I move approval of amendment number 2, project 1042, update project title and add operating costs for equipment.
Second.
Seconded by Jay. And go ahead and speak to this.
This is mostly clarification. I looked back at the original, so this was originally added to the CIP back in 2020 with my amendment, and the original name of the amendment was Hybrid Electric Vehicle and Equipment Fund, something of that nature. So it specified hybrid and electric. Over time, that it got changed so that it was just hybrid vehicle premium. I think it's important that we change that back to clarify that this can be used for either hybrid electric vehicles, but then also clarify, which was part of the original intention of the amendment, that it could be used to offset any sort of infrastructure improvements to make charging of the vehicles easier, which is often just installing the right type of electricity source so that it can be charged in a reasonable amount of time. Those typically aren't very expensive. I mean, I was talking to Bill Balke about this, and it could be as little as $5,000 or less to put this infrastructure in. But I think it's important that we clarify that, and we did just add $5,000 in operating cost, just as a potential, in 2024, because we have those 2 electric vehicles hopefully coming, and since we, realistically we probably won't get them done until 2023, so we probably don't need to do this type of upgrades until then. Thanks.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we can go ahead and vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. All right, that one passes. And number 3, Julia.
I move approval of project 3508 Irish Lane, removal of the bike lanes.
I'll second that motion.
Seconded by Dave. And Julia, do you want to speak to this?
Yes, so if you read my amendment, my concern is I brought forward this amendment is to discuss adding the bike lanes for $2.8 million in this road. That is part of the Greenway corridor called the Moraine H Park that aim to protect all the heritage oaks that are in that area of the corridor. So when I went to Irish Lane second, I know that the road needs a resurfacing. I am not touching that. I drove that road. It needs to be repaired. If you read my amendment, I said that maybe we should use a multi-use path if we want to do this, or the option is if the multi-path is not an option. I don't think that this is we need to do this right now because we need to determine how many bikes really, are using that corridor. So my question representing the tree committee and the park committee is we are bringing forward this is how to if we are going to build this bike lane, how we are going to protect the oak trees. Okay? Because this oak tree, I have talked to some of the people living in that corridor. Some of them, they're like 200 years old. Okay? So, and also, if you look, some of the comments that we received an email, they say that the city already dropped the ball about this Moraine H Park. No, if you read the draft of the park's plan that is being developed, but now is kind of a topic of weight left. We didn't have an staff assigned to continue with that until we hired a new city community planner. So if you look at an email that you received this afternoon from the chair of the park committee, that is a link. If you read, everything in red are all the proposed changes that the park committee are bringing to the park's plan, okay? That eventually is going to we are going to bring this plan to you for final vote. But one of the things is to keep working on the Greenways corridor, especially with the Moraine H Park. That is still a very important part of the city and the history of the city. So this is why I want to have a discussion with all of you with this amendment. If we really think that we need to spend $2.8 million in doing this bike lane, I want to hear your feedback, but also if we are doing this, how we are going to protect those trees. That's it.
All right. We got Joe, and then Jay, and then Randy. Go ahead, Joe.
Sure. My question as I was reading it was about the possibility of a multi-use path. Is there any staff that can speak to both the difference in cost and also the difference in, I guess, accessibility and safety? I know cost was one concern, and then I know that when Steve Arnold had commented about safety, I'm wondering whether a multi-use path would be able to achieve that, and how, and if it is feasible, because it sounded like there was uncertainty as to whether that is a viable alternative or not.
Yeah, Bill, I see you're on. I don't know if you can speak to the cost difference between a multi-use path versus adding these shoulders on Irish Lane.
Sure. If I recall, we did an estimate for it. The cost was a little bit less than the bike lanes, just simply because it was off-road, but we ran into an issue with property acquisition, that we cannot acquire property for bike lane, or I'm sorry, for paths offline. So that was one of the issues that we had with that. As far as safety goes, anytime you remove bikes totally from vehicles, that's the safer route. It's preferred, but there are two options there that we can pursue. So it's either one, but I don't have those costs in front of me right now.
So a multi-use path is not possible just because of those policies?
It's in the memo.
It would make it more difficult to acquire right-of-way for the path itself, if that's exclusively what we're going after.
So difficult, but not impossible.
I think the statutes currently provide that we cannot acquire pathways for right-of-way.
So it sounds like as of now, no. You never know if it'll change. The rules can always change.
Got
it. Jay, and then Randy.
Yeah, I'm not going to support this amendment. First of all, we're talking about a project that's not going to be built until 2026. We have money budgeted in 2024 to do the initial planning and engineering on it, and that would be the time to find out what kinds of obstacles we might run into. I may have a 2-digit IQ, but I just don't see a scenario in which this council is going to support cutting down a 200-year-old oak tree. I mean, is there a single one of you that would vote for that? So I mean, somehow, when we get to that point where we're actually laying this out, we will find out what is where. Irish Lane currently sits on a 66-foot wide right-of-way. Irish Lane right now is 24 feet wide with two 2-foot gravel shoulders on each side. I drive down that road nearly every day, and I see bicyclists on that road nearly every time I drive on it. And I have to move way over into the other side to avoid them because there's nowhere for them to drive. We can work on the alignment. If we end up making this a 36-foot wide pavement, we can work on how that alignment fits in a 66-foot wide right-of-way to protect whatever might be there. And if it turns out at that point that it's not feasible, then maybe we don't build it that way. I don't know. Maybe we only put 4-foot shoulders on in those spots instead of 4 foot plus a buffer. I don't know, because we don't have any information right now. So I think what we need to do is wait until 2024. If we want to come back to this, that's fine. But I think we wait until 2024 after we have the planning and the engineering, some of the engineering done, to see what we're actually dealing with. If you look at a map right now, if you look at the GIS map, you will see that Irish Lane right now is not even in the center of the right-of-way. it's much like Lacey Road, and we had this conversation with Lacey Road residents about 25 years ago when Quarry Hill was being built, because everyone said, well, Lacey Road is a straight road. Well, no, it's not. Lacey Road meanders back and forth within that 66-foot wide right-of-way, just like Irish Lane does right now. So I think what we need to do is figure out what we can do within the existing right-of-way, and we aren't going to be able to do that until 2024 when we do the planning and engineering on this.
And I think one other piece of information that we'll have then is the neighborhood plan for the Greenfield neighborhood. I know we're doing that planning, starting that planning, and so there's going to be a lot more development happening in that area. So the traffic today is going to be a lot different than the traffic even, once that's done and gets built out as well. I have Randy and then I think Shannon as well. Go ahead, Randy.
I'm going to keep this very short. Jay, I underscore everything that you said. There's nobody in this chambers that would cut down a 200-year-old tree. And I mean, let's do an impact study, or let's see what engineering is going to say. And that road right away, there is some room to provide a paved shoulder, or let's just see what this brings us in 2024, 2026. We're visiting this in 2022. So I'm opposed to the amendment.
Shannon, go ahead.
My thing is, I live right off of Lacey Road. I barely see bikers on there. Not as much as they said when they built all the bike lanes and all that stuff. We have a walking path. My thing is we have other roads that are pretty close to it that have bike lanes. I don't understand why we have to put bike lanes on, on Irish Lane. I see it on Sain because we got nothing over there. But, I mean, just a few ways over, you got Lacey Road. You use it on Lacey Road. That's all I got to say.
Dave, go ahead.
Don't fall off your chair. I agree with Julia. I don't want anyone falling off their chair. No, just a little tongue-in-cheek, having fun. Kind of echo what Shannon said. We have a parallel path on Lacey Road, which we've put bike paths on. I would prefer, I'm a big advocate for the Moraine Edge Park. I think that's something needed. And when that goes in, we'll have a bike path all the way from Fitchburg Road all the way to Sain. And so, that would mitigate we wouldn't need the bike lanes on here. We'd have two parallel paths. And so that's all I have to say on it.
I guess the question maybe I'll let Joey speak, but for, maybe Jay or Andy too, this is just taking that money out. Would you be more in favor of keeping the money in, but saying it's bike lanes or multi-use path to be determined in the future? I don't know. I mean, that's another option. I think that's maybe some of the concern is that the money is being completely removed and we don't really know. Maybe it isn't bike shoulder, is a multi-use path, but Julia, go ahead first.
Yes, so if you read my amendment, I mentioned about the multi-use path. I give an option, you know what I mean? The other thing that I want to clarify is that sometimes when we are, when two departments are designing project, maybe they should talk to each other because, there is this moraine open space and preservation area. It has been there from 2010. And then, I assume that someone, when we're putting this plan, moving this plan forward with we are going to incorporate the bike lanes in Irish Lane, they should have looked at it and say, hey, is something else here is going to happen or we are planning to do? This is the other thing that I think that they need to understand, that there was another plan, the parks plan. This plan is coming from 2010. And then when we are trying to build this road, we need to also, I think, look back and say, what else is planned for this area regarding, So I think something missing in the communication, because if you read the memo from Public Works, it said that, yes, we are for the bike lanes, we are going to remove trees. They mentioned that. One of the things that they're going to do is that they're going to do the regrading of the ditch line, and they're removing trees, acquiring right of way, all of that stuff. So they are already mentioned that. And they also mentioned that another option could be the multi-path, the shared use path. So So I want to say, what I want to say with this amendment is like, okay, that this council discussed this, that some of us are concerned about removing the tree, eventually, because in 2024, maybe there is another totally different council here, and I will say, we don't give a damn about the tree. We are gonna put, you know what I mean? So at least we send up, we care about this. If we are gonna do it, we need to do it in a way that we can preserve those heritage oak trees. You know what I mean? That's it. This is what I want to say with I don't want to have the bikers mad at me, and, I understand about planning and all of that, but I want to say, okay, when we do this plan in 2 or 3 years, there was a group of people here that they were concerned with the trees. That's it.
Ready?
Well, the plan may say that we're going to remove trees, but this body can make that change as well. So maybe that's what ought to be brought forward. And there's been some conversation about the amount, the 2.4, but the memo also states that there are grants out there that can be awarded to secure those funds so that we are not paying out that entire amount. We do it all the time, and this would be no exception.
We got Jay, Gabriella, and then Jim.
There's, yes, there are probably going to be some trees removed in the construction of this project, just like what we approved on West Lacey Road. There's a gazillion trees on Irish Lane, and surprisingly enough, not all of them are 200-year-old oak trees. In fact, very few of them are. There's a lot of box elder trees. There's a lot of other things that are going along that road that will probably have to be removed no matter what happens. And that's just part of what happens when we resurface roads. So I believe that when we start engineering this and when we start planning it out and start actually getting into reality instead of the speculation that we're doing right now, we will find out what's actually there and what the impacts will be. Now, what I want to draw the council's attention to is we have a bicycle and pedestrian plan that was approved in 2017, and that plan there was a previous iteration of that plan that was approved in 2009. And there was a previous iteration of that plan that was approved sometime before that. I don't remember exactly when. In those plans, Irish Lane has been identified as a primary bike route. Now, if we, the council, or the bike committee, or whoever, does not believe that Irish Lane should be identified as a primary bike route, then the bicycle and pedestrian plan ought to be modified, amended to remove the references to that. But that, to me, seems like a necessary first step before deciding we're going to eliminate bicycle infrastructure in one document on what another duly approved, public hearing supported other document says we are going to do. So I think the first step, if we're going to just eliminate this, I think the first step is to modify the bike and ped plan. Now, getting to the comment about the multi-use path, I think Bill's point about that requiring additional right-of-way acquisition is a problem. Because when we build a multi-use path, by definition, we're not building that path connected to the roadway. So we're going to have our regular roadway with its shoulders, because we still have to have shoulders on that roadway. Then we're going to have a gap of some distance. I don't know what we would use. And then we're going to build our multi-use path, which is typically 10 feet in Fitchburg. And by that point, you are getting close to the 66 feet, especially if you have to start doing things like put in drainage ditches, because sometimes it rains in Wisconsin. So I do think you start approaching that area where now you have to think about running an 80-foot right-of-way instead of just doing it within the existing roadway and adding a little bit to the current roadway bed. So I think this amendment, even if it is something that this council is going to support, is premature. There's a lot more information we have to have before anything like this even becomes a reasonable amendment.
Gabriella, and then Jim after that.
So Jay brings up a good point that it just seems like we do have to have a discussion. This has come up multiple times since this council hasn't been around, this specific council hasn't been around for that long, and we've had this conversation multiple times. It does seem like we should take a look at the bike and pedestrian plan, or maybe have a conversation where the bike community can talk about what their needs are, and where the people that advocate for trees and natural spaces can talk about what their needs are, and hear more discussion about this rather than it being piecemeal, project by project. Because I do have sympathies on both sides, but I think the fact that this is far enough out does make me feel more comfortable, and I sympathize with the argument that maybe we shouldn't remove it just because it's so far out that there's time to plan. And I guess this is a lot of jumbled thoughts, but in the end, I'm glad to see that some people seem interested in the Moraine Edge Park concept. I added that into the CIP after it had been removed a long time ago last year, which you all supported, and I was really grateful for that. And it sounds like there's interest in that plan. The Parks Commission's interested in it. It's obviously related to this Irish Lane discussion when this comes up in 2026 again, if it does, assuming this amendment, the project stays in. So I do think that maybe we should think about accelerating that planning so that we can do the Greenfield neighborhood, the Moraine Edge Park, Irish Lane resurfacing, maybe bike lanes, maybe multi-use path. I think we should do that in concert so that they're not fighting concepts, but that they're coming together. Thanks.
I have Jim and then Joe.
Yeah, I too need more information. And, one thing about Jay, you bring up the bike plan. I'm looking at it right now. And one thing that I noticed on this bike plan, when you talk about crashes between motor vehicle and bicyclists, all of them, the majority of them from 2011, 2015 is north of Sherrill Parkway. And then when you look south of that, basically south of Wayland Road, you only have 3. So I agree with Julia in your amendment that there needs to be some type of traffic study. And I think each of these things need to be evaluated than just say, well, this is the standard template that we're going to use when we build roads. Because $2.8 million is a lot of money. And, being retired, I'm out and about a lot during the day. I don't see many bicyclists. And I wish we could get some type of count of bicyclists that are actually using these roads. Now, you go to Madison, geez, you see them all over the place, people riding bikes. But when I'm driving around Fitchburg, going to different events, going to different activities that I have to do during the day, I do not see many bikes. So I would like to get more information on who's riding, where are they riding, and also to get updated information on traffic crashes that are occurring, maybe from 2015 to 2022.
All right, Joe.
Yes, I echo folks that I would like to see more information. I don't think that necessarily warrants kind of overturning a plan that's already in the works. And I'll also just add clarity. A couple people mentioned bike committee. We do have a bike committee member who lives over there and has sort of been consistently advocating for more bike infrastructure over there. So, it's too bad she wasn't able to come in. Maybe she didn't know about the amendment, but I think consulting bike committee would be a good thing to do prior to, taking this kind of action. And I agree with Jay that we should sort of think about getting to that point before we start making decisions about, kind of removing plans that we've already put in place and also that's in the bike and ped plan.
All right. Yeah, Tracy, by the way, we are going to do a roll call on this if you want to get ready, but not yet. Go ahead, Jim.
Joe, since you're on the bike committee, at Irish Lane and Fish Hatchery, on the west side of the street, there's a little device like with a lens on it. Is that a device that's counting people riding bikes on that path?
I don't think we
It's
have
like
that.
Like on a pole.
I don't think so.
No, we talked about bike counters, and that wasn't one of the places where we had proposed to put one. But I mean, I don't know. I guess we'd have to think about how we do that traffic count, and maybe that's something that the bike committee can discuss. I think from what I recall, when we had talked about bike counters, well, a couple things. So one, there's a variety of different price points of bike counters, from the ones you see like by John Nolan Drive in Madison with the nice digital display that are really expensive, and then the ones that you can sort of lay underneath the ground, the little sensors. So I mean, that could be a possibility. I think we would just need to discuss as a committee like what we want to put forward as proposals. And then the most basic kind of really informal way of doing it is like sort of surveying and getting out a couple of days in the year and actually physically counting the bikes that come by. Obviously, that's a little less scientific. So I would be curious as to how we would track this, because everything I've heard so far is anecdotal, including the testimony that, I gave about one of our committee members. So I just think we need more information before we just decide to cut this out of our CIP.
All right, ready for a roll call vote? All right, looks like it. Go ahead, Tracy. And this is a reminder. Yeah, sorry, I'm just going to remind people. A yes is that you want to remove the bike lanes. A no is that no, you want to keep the bike lanes in. All right, go ahead.
Alder Allen?
No.
Alder Rada-Frada? Yes. Alder Gerhart?
No.
Alder Herb?
Yes.
Alder Maldonado?
No.
Alder Strassman?
Yes.
Alder Udell?
No.
Alder Wheeler?
No.
5-3.
All right, so that one fails. And we can go on to number 4, Randy.
Very good. On to more bike lanes. Motion to, I don't know if am I motioning?
Yeah, you make a motion to. Yep.
All right. Motioning to approve number 3511, Wayland Road Bike Lane additions.
Second that motion.
I'll get on to Dave. You want to speak to this, Randy?
Yeah. The city has a number of resurfacing projects for 2023, and I feel that we can use these projects to negotiate the best price for CIP 3511 if we move the project up into 2023, which is currently scheduled for 2024. This will also ensure that we are leveraging ARPA dollars, which will pay for the entire project before they expire. And by not accelerating the project, risk ARPA not covering the costs, and the costs could be much higher. Again, it's ARPA dollars.
All right. Dave, go ahead.
I can provide testimony. I ride this road often, and the section going up the hill towards going past Apple Garden, where you lose the paved shoulder over the crest of the road. Cars cannot see around you. That's a dangerous section. Usually I'm not too worried. That one, my head's on a swivel, and I believe it would be prudent to have the bike lanes, on there all the way over to Fitchburg.
Julia, go ahead.
Yeah, my question is to Bill, because I read the memo and they say that there could be some issue with capacity with staff taking over so many projects, because next year we have also the Lazy Road, where is Sain Road, and if we are going to add the Wayland Road, I always favor to add in the bike lanes in this road, so don't take it wrong, okay? My question is because I read your memo, you are talking about, you have some concern about staff capacity, and and this is something that I was thinking about, how we can space out some big projects so staff don't get burned out sometime, especially in public works department. So can you give us your feedback, Bill?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, as Julia had mentioned, We have the resurfacing projects that is including the ARPA funding for the low and moderate income areas that we're adding. So that's another $1.5 million of construction or resurfacing projects that we have to get done this year. I think we can get it done. Staff had said that if we had some funding to get the design done for that, for those bike lanes or the paved shoulders, that we could probably, that would be one of the ways that we could get it done. But I think just with the resurfacing project alone, that it's going to be difficult to get that and design the bike, the shoulders as well.
Daryl.
Yeah, I was just going to point to that staff memo that we just already talked about the staff capacity. I mean, in transportation and transit, you know, we found out a while back that they just didn't have the capacity to do West Lacey Road and the Cyan and Seminole Highway, the Lacey and Seminole Highway intersection roundabout. It just was a staff capacity issue. It wasn't that we weren't able, we didn't want to do it. It's just we literally couldn't. And, you know, I don't know why our transportation engineer left the city for sure, but he sure did have like a lot on his plate, and we had to hire a new person, and that's always in the back of my mind as well, about burning out staff and losing that knowledge that's gained. But yeah, I just think there's a lot going on next year. Like West Lacey Road, the intersection is going to be big, all the Cyan Road. Then we have that McCoy-Cyan Road intersection that's being rebuilt where the bike path is. And I think we already, like our public works department is already overworked. And at the same time too, it's clear from the staff that having the project stay in 2024 will still qualify for ARPA funding if we do want to use it then. Because we have to be under contract by 2024 and expended by 2026. So we certainly could still use ARPA funding even with it staying where it is. So that's my preference.
Jay.
Yeah, this is another road. So my day, many of my days start with me going west. And basically typically I take Cyan Road down to Irish Lane. And then I take Irish Lane over to Fish Hatchery. I go a little further south and take Wayland Road over. And often I'll start my day, like tomorrow my first call is in Barneveld. So I'll be going that way down to catch 18151 to head toward Barneveld. And it's that time of day when I see bicyclists on these roads. The difference between this road and Irish Lane is that Irish Lane is largely flat. But this road has these hills on it that, as Dave was pointing out earlier, you can't see anything over that hill. So while there are people who love to drive at 70 miles an hour down that road, it's not safe. It's not safe to drive that fast because you never know what's going to be on the other side of a hill. And while I do support this project, and I even support moving it up, the bigger problem comes when you hit the town of Verona over there, because they have two of those big hills that you cannot see over. So at some point there may be some need to talk with the town leadership about how they're going to take care of that, although that property may end up getting annexed by the city of Verona at some time in the near future. But in any event, we need to do our part here, and so I do support this project.
Anyone else? I'm going to ask for a roll call on this one too, Tracy. I'm not really sure where the votes are.
Ready? Alder Allen?
Aye.
Alder Radafrada?
No.
Alder Gerhart?
No.
Alder Herbst?
Aye.
Alder Maldonado?
Aye.
Alder Strassman?
Aye.
Alder Udell?
Aye.
Alder Wheeler?
Aye.
Motion carried.
All right, we can move on to number 5. Dave.
And number 5, CIP 6259, reoccurring park system improvements, removing a park sign from project. Overall funding remains.
Is there a second? No second?
Second.
All right, Shannon seconded.
Okay.
You want to speak to this, Dave?
So there's $5,000 in the budget to put a sign at these small parks, and one of the This came from one of our Board of Public Works members. He asked me to include these, and this makes sense. Small parks, do we necessarily need to have a $5,000 sign there? You know, we have a small park by my house, has no sign.
We can put one in.
Oops, down on the road, please.
And for 5,000, you know, we have the average family in Fitchburg in the past year has over 3,400 out of their pocket due to increased, you know, necessity costs. I think this would make sense, you know, this isn't needed. We can take this out.
Julia, go ahead.
So my question to you, Dave, because I was reading the CIP, project, and one of the $5,000 is for the Southdale Park. It's from the town of Madison, so we need to have a sign there. So from what are the other parks that you?
I don't know the two specifically, to be honest with you.
Because
Michael proposed them to me.
Yeah, because when I look at the $5,000 is for the $5,000 is for the Southdale, for next year for the Southdale park identification that we need to change the signage.
I agree with you there.
And we need to have the branding. So if this money is to use for that, I have to say no to your amendment. Because we need to have this new sign for.
I didn't believe this.
Let's not go back and forth. We're not going back and forth on these guys. Okay. Yeah, Julie, you're done. Okay. Anyone else want to speak to this? Yeah, Gabriel.
Yeah, I mean, I generally think that, sometimes I'm surprised by how much things cost when I'm sitting in this chair. But I do think having park signage is like good branding for the city, especially in Southdale, where we're bringing a new part of town in. But I think people should know what their parks are named. I think they should know their city of Fitchburg, that the tax dollars, it's one of the best things that our tax dollars go to is parks. That's all I'm going to say.
All right. Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't think that the size of a park should determine whether it gets a sign or not. And a key example of this was King James Way Park, which, we got a sign put up pretty quickly. And people literally couldn't find the park. So, I mean, I think just being able to have a sign to know where you are if people are visiting from, somewhere else, another neighborhood, another part of the city is important. And I don't think that size justifies kind of removing a signage from a park. In addition to what Alder Gerhard said, it's good branding for us as a city. And there's tons of little parks that have signs in them that I've driven past or that are in, my district. So I'll be voting no on this.
Okay. Julie, did you have your hand raised? Guess not. All right, Jay.
Oh, no. Sorry.
Oh, you do? Okay. Go ahead.
So Scott is here. So I don't know if Scott can we ask a question to Scott?
Yeah.
Okay. So Scott, I want to be sure that next year the $5,000 is for the Southdale Park. I am correct?
That's correct. And typically, I might add that the park ID signs, certainly in our newer parks, are the park improvement funds. Dollars are eligible to pay for these park identification signs. So that might be another point of information that I would add to the conversation.
Okay.
Jay, go ahead.
Yeah, Scott, I presume these signs, they're those sandblasted ones, right? So those signs last, what, 20, 30 years?
Yeah, typically.
Jay.
Scott, do you recall, and if not, that's fine, what the cost was to install that sign recently in King James Way Park, just as a matter of reference? I know that not all signs are equally sized, and every installation is a little bit different based upon, logistics and location and all those sorts of things. But I'm just curious if you recall what the cost of that sign was.
Yeah, if I recall, Chad, that $5,000 might be a pretty heavy estimate. I think it's probably was in the $2,500, if not a little bit under that range. We just kind of put $5,000 as as a placeholder, if you would. But typically, yeah, they're a lot less than that $5,000.
So typically, obviously, we plan for 5,000, obviously, in case of complications or other, logistical matters, depending upon, which sign it might be and the size of the park or sign and those sorts of things. So thank you for that clarification, Scott.
You're welcome.
All right. I don't think I have anyone else on my list right now. And I'm not exactly sure where we're at for voting. So Tracy, I'll ask for a roll call. Sorry.
Alder Allen,
No.
Alder Rada,
No.
Alder Gerhart,
No.
Alder Herbst,
Aye.
Alder Maldonado,
No.
Alder Strassman,
No.
Alder Udell,
No.
Alder Wheeler,
No.
All right.
7-1, motion failed.
All right. We can move on to number 6, Dave.
Move approval of amendment number 6, CIP 6259, reoccurring park system improvements, the removal of the ball field fence from the Jamestown Eagle Park.
Second.
Said by Jay. Go ahead, Dave. Speak to this.
So previous year, this was in the CIP. I spoke with city staff and expressed desire that no one in the neighborhood wanted that and that it was not needed. I'm someone that's used that park almost virtually every day, played baseball there with my kids and coaching for many years, and did not want a fence, and I thought that was the end of it until this early this summer I came back from a work trip and the fence was up, and so then 2 days later I was presented with a 84 signature petition from neighbors calling for its removal, and so hence the amendment. I would add it costs more for staff to maintain this park with the fence there, and they sprayed Roundup to keep the grass down all the way around the fence, right next to our community gardens, and so the neighbors do not want this. It ruins the look of our park. Teams play ball there. I've talked to all of them. Almost none of them are from the area, and when I talked to them, they said, yeah, we played here last year. We liked the field. It had no fence, so I don't think it affects the amount of play, and the neighbors would like to see it gone, and we believe it can be reused at another facility, whether it's a ball field or potentially a dog park or something. I think the city can make use of that fence.
I've got Joe and then Julia.
Yeah, I'll echo what Dave said. I've got a lot of emails about that fence. So just from a staff perspective, or maybe somebody on the council that's been around long enough, what was the rationale behind putting it there in the first place? Like, was it neighbors that asked for it? Was it in the city plan? Did somebody request it? Because it doesn't seem like it's popular at all.
Scott, do you want to answer that maybe?
Sure, I can, and certainly they're in working with the Jamestown Neighborhood Association. Several years back, they were really interested in the city creating some improvements to the Hugo Jamestown Park, which kind of prompted the construction of the new shelter that is there. It also prompted we did relocate the ball diamond a little bit further out so that we could create some seating area to continue the improvements of the facility, and from a ball diamond and that kind of perspective, a fence tends to finish off that facility. Certainly I can understand the concern with the open play and those kinds of things, and maybe a compromise might be that the outfield fence remains and then the wing fences, because I did hear that, it does kind of discourage the open play in the field. So that might be a little bit of a compromise, but certainly, it's the council's call. But from a staff perspective, it just really kind of finishes off a ball field facility.
Julia, go ahead.
Yeah, my question to you, Dave, how much is gonna cost to remove this fence and, and to, if we don't, you know what I mean? So I want to be sure that.
I believe they estimated $2,000 of staff time. And if that was too much, I'm quite sure I could mobilize neighborhood volunteers to take the chain link down and.
All right. I've got Randy
Ingenuity,
next,
man.
and then Dave. Go ahead, Randy.
That was my question as well, but I was under the impression, Dave, that it wasn't 2,000. I thought it was $0 because staff was using it. Or sorry, you're equating their
Yeah.
their time.
Their hours.
Okay, but it is city staff that will remove the fence and
I believe that's
repurpose it
what
somewhere
Scott
else.
offered, yes.
Yeah.
J-
Okay.
Dave, and then Jay. Dave, do you have another comment?
I just want to comment, the field, the city parks, they did a wonderful job reallocating the field or reorienting it, putting the net over for foul balls, extending the first and third base line with a higher fence to protect people. Outstanding job, they really did that. And, we've been playing ball there since that park's been there. I've lived in the neighborhood 35 years, it was there 5 or 6 years before I was there. So we've gone this long with no fence there, and people have enjoyed playing ball, walking their dogs through, doing everything. Let's go back to that.
Jay, go ahead.
So it's not clear to me in this petition what it is the neighbors are objecting to. Is it the outfield fence?
The completion of the fence down the base, down the third and first base line, Jay, and then the outfield fence. It blocks off the park,
So when you say completion, how far did the fence go previously?
It probably went, I might need Scott to weigh in, but probably 10 or 12 feet beyond first and third base line, kind of standard protection.
So that's like a fairly typical, the way many, like at Demetrol Field, that's the way many of them are over there. Okay. So this would be to go back to that, right?
Yes.
And does the city own a device that can pull fence posts out? Because those are probably driven in 10 feet.
No, they're below the frost. I'm sorry.
All right. Scott, do you know?
Scott, do we have a device that can pull those posts out?
Can
Oh,
we
yeah,
fix it?
we can
Yes,
certainly, we can certainly remove it if that's the council's desire.
All right.
All right. Gabriella?
I'm generally inclined to trust the alders in their district to decide what's best for their district. So, and I kind of wish there were photos just so I could get a visualization. And if there are photos, if someone wants to text them to me or email me, I'd be interested in seeing them. But I guess I'm just curious about the process because typically CIP is just a planning document, right? And then we budget for it. But this amendment actually has a budget implication, right? So can we?
So this would happen next year?
Yeah, I mean, that's my question. Does it happen in 2023 or do we wait or do we have to do a budget amendment?
I don't know.
At a meeting? Because I don't know, can we authorize funding in this meeting?
Let's have Misty answer that question. Misty, go ahead.
So I would say this is really a policy decision on behalf of the council. So the cost of it, as we've talked about, is staff time, which staff believes they can absorb in their current workload. The reason why it's in a CIP, though, is whatever sale proceeds we get from selling it at auction would go back into the CIP project when that piece of material is sold. So I think this is just a way to get that policy answer.
Got it. Thanks.
Jay.
Well, now based on that, let me ask another question, probably of Scott, because we heard tonight that there may be a use for this fence in another location. What are your thoughts on that? And if your thoughts are that it would be that this fence could be used there, do you have a place to store all of this until such a time as it would get erected?
We would have a place to store, but in talking with the staff, we don't see it as there's different fence heights and things like that, and the fence height at Hugo Jamestown doesn't match any of the fencing that we currently have within the park system. We can, certainly take a closer look at it, but at this point, we really don't see a repurpose area for it. But we can certainly double check and take a look. The outfield fence, if I recall, at Hugo Jamestown is is maybe in that 4 to 5 foot height. And certainly I know Patrick Cheney spoke prior, and the ball field fence at the diamonds at McGaw are a little bit taller, 7 or 8 feet, because it's typically the adults that are playing softball, and you don't want the adults running into a fence the way it is, but for them to run into a 4 or 5 foot fence is really dangerous, and that they can, carry over the fence and those kinds of things. So it's certainly something that we want to make sure that we're keeping it safe, and we'll double check to see if there isn't a potential use for the wire and the wire that we do have at Hugo Jamestown.
Dave.
Scott is correct. The fence that they put in at Hugo Jamestown is 5 foot. The one at McGaw is 5'9". Patrick Cheney measured it for us today.
It's only 5'9".
5'9", so.
I
think it's higher than that. At the
I do
softball
too.
diamonds, I've played a lot of games out there. It's taller than me. Not much.
Yeah,
I think it's like 7.
I hit my head
anyway.
on the top of it when I played, backed into it, so it's.
Yeah. No, that's not. I've seen a lot of people run into that, and they haven't hit their head. I played out there for about 30 years. So, all right. Anyway, going on. Not relevant. Anyone else want to comment on this? All right. We can go to a vote. I think we can do a voice vote on this one, actually. We'll try it anyway. All in favor of Amendment 6, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. All right, that one is approved. 7, Dave.
I'd like to withdraw amendment number 7.
All right, that is withdrawn. Moving along to number 8, Julia.
I move approval of project 6266, new park developments, adding shade structure at the splash pad.
Second.
Sent by Gabriella. And go ahead and speak to this.
So this one is, I don't know how many of you have been in the splash pad. In the east section, doesn't have any, there are no tree, no umbrellas. So, and in the west side, we have 2 shaded structures. And I live 2 blocks away from the park, and so I can see that there are family there that they are using a lot of the 2 parks now, the inclusive playground and the splash pad, and there is not too much shade there. And you have a small kids. So, and I asked the friends of the splash pad if they have any funds to cover this, and they say no. So I am bringing this as a discussion for you to see if you have any interest to that we can add 2 shade structure on the east side of the, and also, those can be rented out. I think we rent those, the shade, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
It's a shelter. I guess depends on
No, we rent those. Scott. Well, I don't know.
We actually rent one of the 3 shade structures we do is available for rent.
Yeah, so the idea is to use park dedication fee for this, so that's it.
All right. Jay.
What exactly is a shade structure? Is that one of those things with the wood that goes across that provides shade as the sun goes across the sky?
The one that are already there installed. Have you seen those on the splash pad?
I saw it, but I didn't really look at it very closely.
It's like a big umbrella. Yeah, it's like a metal.
that
yeah,
thing.
And
Okay, got it.
I think so, yeah.
we remove it during winter time.
Gotcha.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll try a voice vote on this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay.
Nay.
All right, that is approved. 9, Julia.
I move approval of project 6266, adding an open air shelter near the inclusive playground.
Second.
Sent by Gabriella. Go ahead and speak to this one.
So this one, I decided to add this when I was walking one day, and you know, if you have been in the inclusive playground, there is only a couple of trees on the west side, but there is nothing else on the rest of the inclusive playground, and it can be very hot for families. Some people, they are resting under the tree. But I decided to move forward with this amendment because I saw people with camping tent around the park, okay? Because they have small children and they need to have some shade. And they were camping tent, okay? That they're using to cover from the sun. So, and since we are working with the Stony Prairie Park, and one of the shelters that we want to install there is called an open shelter. And we have some a budget for that. It was $170,000. This is how I calculate that amount. I don't know how 33 by 36 feet is, but it could be smaller, you know. But the idea is if we can add an open shelter, I am okay with any size, but at least, you know, we provide additional shade to families. Those shelters also can be rented. So that's it.
All right. Jay and then Randy. Go ahead, Jay.
So, Scott, do you know how large that open air shelter is that's next to Kids Crossing in McKee Farms Park?
Ooh, that might be 20 by 40, so that's relatively large, yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not that much different than 36 by 36. Would this 170,000 be envisioning a concrete pad underneath it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it would be accessible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Randy, go ahead.
A couple questions. The 170,000, I'm sorry, where's that coming from as far as fees? Or is it coming from park fees?
Park fees.
Does that take away from any other project?
Park is a community park, and we can use some of the funds. Yeah, eventually, yes, can be, you know.
Will it take away from the hub?
Maybe not.
And, okay, and my other one, it's not really a question, just a comment. Do you think we could plant some trees since we're talking about trees and we continuously talk about trees? And I know that, and I realize that it's going to take a while for them to grow, but we are in a park, and so
Yes.
somewhere in there, I hope we're planting
Yeah, we are already we are going to plant some trees, so it's
Good.
additional. Yes.
Okay, all right, great.
Gabriella.
The one thing about the inclusive playground, which I realized we had the opening on Sunday, and it was very sunny, and I got sunburned. But it's like very raised up.
Yeah.
It's not like flush with the ground. So the trees will help, but they won't necessarily
until 10 years
like give a lot of shade. But I mean, obviously it provides some shade for people that are on the grass. But yeah, there were a lot of people out there like having birthday parties. It's definitely a very well-used space. I do like the idea of this. I guess, I don't know if you'd be willing to like push it back a year or two just so that we can see where things land with the hub and with Southdale Park and figure out where we stand with those funds before we commit to it. So
I don't have an issue.
Would you like to make that motion?
yeah, I'll make a motion to push this project to 2025.
Second.
Seconded by Jay. Any further discussion on that change? Seeing none, we can vote on the amendment to change it to 2025. I'll try a voice vote. All in favor of pushing it to 2025, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay? All right. Any further discussion before we vote on it? Seeing none, then all in favor of the amended amendment, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. All right, that is approved. And last one, Julia.
I move approval of Project 6307 City Hall remodeling, changing the, what is it here? The funding source.
From fund balance to borrowing.
Second.
All right, seconded by Gabriella. And you want to speak to this, Julia?
This one is something that I will ask Misty input, but we are gonna spend $650,000 or maybe a little bit more. Who knows how much it's gonna cost to do this? And it's gonna use fund balance. But my question is maybe for Misty and the rest of the council. This is an amendment that I bring forward, so we can discuss that. Can we keep those fund balance for an expected expenditure with everything is gonna happen with the town of Madison, and maybe fund the remodelation with debt, that like we do most of the time?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
It's a question for Misty.
What's the question? I guess I'm unclear what the question is. Can we do that?
Yeah, we can do that, you know what I mean?
I think we can. I think, Misty, you want to speak to why that may or may not, what the pluses and minuses are of that, maybe?
Sure. So the unique thing about this is this fund balance that we're proposing to use for this project is a very specific source of fund balance. So with the 2022 budget, we didn't expect that we would qualify for expenditure restraint. So we backfilled that amount with fund balance. So it was already planned that we would use fund balance. We ended up qualifying for it because the Department of Revenue worked for us. So really what this amendment is doing is putting to work that fund balance on another one-time project. Your question about can we borrow for it instead? Absolutely. Council can decide to do that, but there will be costs associated with that between issuing the debt and then paying the interest back. But since this is a one-time project, it seems to be a good match for fund balance if it's available.
So if I'm hearing you right, we can use fund balance and just pay for it, or we can incur some extra cost to borrow for it when we already have the money. It seems like I understand that, if there are unexpected expenses, we want to be able to cover that. But it seems like that's when we would want to borrow, when we actually know there's unexpected, versus pay a bunch of money in case there's unexpected expenses, it seems like. But I think I'm hearing you correctly. Yeah.
Yep, for the most part. The only thing I'd say is that the unexpected expenses, I believe we're talking about mostly the town of Madison piece. And yes, there will be some unexpected costs there. Those may also be another use of our fund balance, depending on what it is, the specific thing that pops up. But my guess, the thing that pops up is not going to be significant. It's going to be more details and nuance and how do we handle this logistically than costs.
Okay. I've got Jay and then Julia. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, just quickly, Misty. When you and I chatted a couple of months ago, we were talking about the use of fund balance for another project. And we have that guideline from Ellers about, is it 20% of we should keep 20% in fund balance?
So our policy is up to 25, but
25. We have in excess of that right now, right?
Correct.
And I think if I remember our conversation correctly, it was roughly $1 million in excess of that.
Something along those lines.
Yeah, and that doesn't include this $650,000. So even if we had unexpected expenditures, we still have $1 million that we can use and not jeopardize that 25%.
Yes, and as long as it's for one-time things,
right.
That would be an appropriate use.
Julia, go ahead.
Because, we already, when we approved the severance package for the town of Madison, if there is any deficiency, they are going to invoice us, and we had to pay with general funds. So that one is going to be, maybe we can use that money in case that we need to pay back the town some of those severance amounts. You know what I mean? I don't know. I am fine with either way. I want to know,
Anyone else? Gabrielle?
Yeah, knowing that, Misty, the fact that we have, I guess I didn't realize that we have unexpected ERP funding, that's great. And the fact that it pretty much covers, like almost exactly covers that cost, it makes me inclined to I think that the use of fund balance is the right call. So I'm
going to withdraw my amendment.
You withdraw? All right. Withdrawn. All right.
Before you guys kill it.
All right. Withdrawn. Let's move on. All right. All right. So now we've got all the amendments, some approved, some withdrawn, some not approved. And so now we have the overall resolution, I believe, to vote on. And so I guess can't do anything else to it at this point. So we can go right to a vote. Misty, are you okay with a voice vote on this?
Absolutely.
All right.
Unless it's close, which it
Right.
shouldn't be.
If it's close, then never mind. All right. All in favor of resolution R13522, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, that is approved. Mayor's report, I'll just say that there's been a lot of ribbon cuttings that we've had. There's some still coming up. I don't want to steal anyone's thunder on some of those, but a lot going on in the city right now. Thank you to staff for all the work that you've been doing, and a lot more that's coming up with Town of Madison and elections and all kinds of other fun stuff as well. So go to all the reports. It is the second meeting in an odd month, so District 2 is to start. Julia, would you like to...
Okay, so what I want to mention is we had the ribbon cutting ceremony for the inclusive playground. What I want to thank all the people that were a part of that team, especially the Parks Department. Scott and his group did a great job in this project, so I want to thank Scott and the team. I think people are enjoying the park. You can see people. I saw kids with wheelchair playing in the park, and everyone is talking that this is a great project. And the connectivity with the splash pad was a win, win-win. So the other thing I want to say is that we are still accepting some funding for the park. If you want to make a contribution, because we need to buy a couple of features that we are missing, you can do it through the Madison Community Foundation and look for the Fitchburg Inclusive Playground. So every amount is welcome. We need a couple of things to finish some small thing, and we want to add a shade structure to there if we want, and some picnic tables, so for kids with wheelchair that they are more expensive than the regular picnic table. So, okay, that's it.
All right, Gabriella.
Yeah, there was I was at the ribbon cutting as well, and there was a funny moment. We let a young kid that was there playing cut the ribbon, and it got a little scary for a second, but it was also an adorable picture, so that was really nice. I'm glad that we did it, even though it was a little terrifying. I just wanted to now acknowledge staff. I came across wild parsnip in McKee Farms Park. For some reason, I hadn't seen it all summer, but it caught my eye, and they were able to get it mowed right away. And they also, our new stormwater environmental engineer made up signs to go around to warn people about wild parsnip. And for anyone that doesn't know, because I didn't know, I actually learned it a couple years ago because I almost ran into wild parsnip, but it has oil on the stem, and if you get it on your leg and then it's exposed to sunlight, you can get severe burns, like up to 3rd-degree burns. It's an invasive plant. It's popping up more and more, and it is in Fitchburg parks. It is in stormwater facilities. It basically looks like yellow Queen's Anne lace. I think that's the easiest way to identify it. So please keep an eye out. If you see it and it's on city property, contact us right away because we can do something about it. But I just also tell people and let people know, because I feel like most people don't know that it's an issue, and you don't want to find out by getting hurt. So thanks to city staff for taking care of that in such a great way. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Jay.
Yeah, I got a few things. I got roped into a little controversy last week involving some residents of Terra Vesa. And what's happening is there are people over there have some dogs, and what happens is their dogs bark at people, and people who are walking by do not like the dogs barking. I did some significant research on this, and we in Fitchburg, our ordinance says if the dog leaves your property, it's required to be on a leash. If it's on your property, that requirement doesn't apply, and that's also in state statute, that we cannot require somebody to have their dog on their leash when it's on their property. But if your dog has a tendency to run off your property and go chase somebody, that becomes a problem. So what I suggested to the residents who called, and what I would suggest to anybody else, is should this be an issue in your area, have your phone ready, take pictures of the dog off the property so that you can contact the police department, because the police department would be happy to go over to the dog owner's home and have a little counseling session about keeping their dog under control. Well, I don't know if they'd be happy about it, but it's part of what they do. So that's just a little thing. The city cannot require people to keep a dog on their leash when it's on their property. But if that dog's going to run off, then something needs to be done. On August 2nd, next Tuesday, starting at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, there's an event going on at Aldo Leopold Park, which is not in the city of Fitchburg, but it's right across the street. And it's about it's a planning session, it's an input session, and there's going to be a lot of things there for reimagining the Leopold Park. So I hope that everybody will be able to attend that if you can. Again, tomorrow we have the library pop-up that's happening in the town of Madison. So that's at 2 o'clock. And on Thursday, starting at 4:30, we have the Fun in the Park in the town of Madison. And the library things there have been a few people there. They've been fairly well attended. I wasn't able to make it to the last Fun in the Park, so I don't know how many people were there, but I think what we're doing there is some good outreach to this community, and it's going to serve us well.
All right, thank you, Shannon.
No comment.
All right, Jim.
Nothing to report.
Randy.
Nothing to report.
All right, Dave.
I want to thank the Parks Department for they reallocated some soccer goals over to the Belmar Park. We asked them, and they took care of that right away. So, thanks to them. If you go by on Verona Road, you see that the Boys and Girls Club, the Trades Training Center, is in full construction, full throttle, and they're still looking. There's continually fundraising. They're looking for donations, and again, we view that, both Alder Maldonado and I view that as a change lives with that. So if you can get behind that, and there's a number of things going on. The Allied Duns Marsh Neighborhood Association. Next Saturday, they have a 3-on-3 basketball tournament in the Allied Park. The following, on Monday, the August 8th, they have a school enrollment kind of clinic. And on Monday, August 15th, they have a movie in the park. And I'll let Joe talk about what happens on August 20th.
All right, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, a couple things. So I had a chance to interview a resident of the district for D1 All-Stars. Her name is Dr. Wendy Malaska. I just want to kind of promote her business. It's here in Fitchburg. It is, let me make sure I have the name of it right. It is called, that's why I'm getting it right. I'm sorry. Dedicated Family Care. So essentially, at a flat fee, people that are uninsured can be able to get sort of the full range of care for a clinic. She owns and operates it, and she sort of gives a really good breakdown of what it is and how the structure works. When I first heard about it, I was like blown away that this is even possible. She's got one bilingual nurse, and it's her basically doing all of the operations and seeing patients. So she's obviously got a much lower caseload than an average doctor, but it allows for greater access for folks who don't necessarily have that, and they can do pretty much everything a standard physician can do. So if you go on the city's YouTube channel, Fact TV's YouTube channel, you should be able to see the interview. We also talk about the impact of Roe versus Wade that Alder Gerhardt had mentioned, and a lot of really important topics. So I encourage folks to check it out and watch it. So the city of Madison has been doing a few Parks Alive events, and two of them have been in Allied Park. One was actually last night, and they're really good. So I encourage folks to support those events, whether or not they're in Fitchburg. They're really fun. And then Dave alluded to it, but there is a block party happening on August 20th at Luna's Groceries. It's going to be a lot of local food vendors. There's going to be a salsa band, a Honduran rapper, kids activities, and just a bunch of fun stuff. So it's going to be from 1 to 9 p.m. on 2010 Red Arrow Trail right across from the border of Fitchburg. That's all I've got.
All right. Tomorrow night is Committee of the Whole. And what do we got on the agenda, Randy?
First hour is discussion on municipal budgeting and budget priorities. And then the second hour is teen center presentation by EQT, Annette Miller.
All right. And then a couple weeks of the meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I will move not to extend the meeting and to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Gabriella. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? We are adjourned.